Okay, I'm down. You got limits, man. You got limits, man. Okay, I'm down.
Hello and welcome to the Katie Halper Show, Useful Idiots special co-stream of the Republican National Debates, the RNC debates. We're very excited to be here with you. We thank you for coming. We know this is going to be a painful night, but hopefully it'll be less painful watching this with us. We also have some drinking games that we're going to play so you can laugh instead of cry, or maybe do both. But before we go over those drinking games, everyone, welcome. Hi to everyone watching on YouTube. Also, hi to everyone watching on Rumble. Please do give the thumbs up. Like the stream, give it a thumbs up. Please do subscribe. Hit the like button, hit the share button, and hit the subscribe. Hit subscribe and then press the bell. And I'm going to bring in the guests one at a time in no order, except for the order how they appear on my screen. So first we have Pascal Robert, co-host of This Is Revolution podcast. Hi, Pascal.
Hey, Katie, how are you?
Good, you? Thanks for coming.
Not a problem. Glad to be here.
Next, we have Sam Biagetti of Historiansplaining, the Historiansplaining podcast. Hi.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sabrina Salvati of the Sabby Sab Show. Hi, Sabby.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Thanks for coming. And now we are going to bring onto the stage Bryce Greene from Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. Fair. You're muted. Don't let the corporate media silence you. That's your beat, but you're showing instead of telling.
Classic. Okay, well,
yeah.
And always a pleasure to be on with you, Katie.
Thank you. And last but not least, Medea Benjamin of Code Pink. Hi, Medea.
Hey, good to be on with you. Looking forward to the the debates.
Whoops. Yeah, I think you said the quiet part out loud, which we all are. So really excited. We're going to share with you the drinking rules. So Brad, if you could please display the drinking rules for tonight's RNC watch. Okay, so take a shot every time. And look, to be safe, I have a bottle. I put an interesting cocktail in here. I want it to be safe. It's not glass, it's plastic. I figure I won't spill. I won't knock it over. So this is what I'm drinking from, but everyone can drink from wherever they want to drink from. But here are the rules. Ready? Take a shot every time they make it clear the war in Ukraine is a proxy war with Russia. Take 2 shots when they say it's a proxy war with China. Drink every other time a candidate other than Chris Christie bends over backwards to not criticize Trump. Drink every time Chris Christie criticizes Trump. Take a shot every time Chris Christie mentions Bon Jovi or Bruce Springsteen. Drink every other time you forget who Asa Hutchinson is. Drink every third time you forget who Doug Burgum is. Make a Cosmo if Nikki Haley makes a girl boss statement. Take a sip whenever she makes another one. Drink a bissel of Manischewitz whenever someone refers to cultural Marxism or praises Israel. Take a sip of vodka when they describe Biden-Harris as radical leftists or accuse them of being something that leftists wish they were. And whenever someone mentions inflation, drink nothing because you can't afford it. So those are the rules. Anyone have any additions, modifications? We're open to taking more rules suggestions during the stream.
We're going to die.
I know. Guys, everything that I said, make sure you have like 5 sips of water between all of those things. Yeah. And I wanted to know if you guys had any predictions about what's going to happen tonight, or any things that you're going to be looking forward to or dreading, any things we should be paying attention to.
I think I predicted this debate is going to be profoundly boring because Trump is not there, and that everyone is going to try their hardest to take shots at Trump and make him the devil.
Okay. I definitely think, following up on that, it'll be interesting to see who takes the bait there, because I think some people are actually afraid of vilifying Trump, but I think we'll definitely see the moderators trying to bait them into doing that.
I think there'll probably be shots at Ron DeSantis too, because he's been doing the strongest of any of these schlemiels here tonight, and but he's been doing worse in the last few days, so they smell blood in the water.
Right.
I think Vivek is probably going to be the standout candidate tonight.
You think he's going to rap?
I hope not.
Yes,
I hope he does.
Spicy little vignettes he tells that are modernly interesting.
Yeah.
He's
know,
the
he
only
did-
one with personality.
Yeah, he does have personality, and he did say, I guess, that rap is not one community, because I guess Eminem isn't a fan of his, even though he's a fan of Eminem. So he's shattering the notion of the monoculture of hip hop. Really important. Medea, you're muted. Silence this time, not by the mainstream media, but by your own hand, accidentally.
He touched the third rail of Israel, saying that we shouldn't keep giving money to Israel. So he's going to be attacked on that
Yeah.
one.
Vivek said
But
that?
I think Vivek said that. And
Wow.
yeah, and I think you're right, Sabi. I think he's going to be the most interesting guy here because he wants to be seen as not playing by the rules.
Yep.
He's
also-
spontaneous.
Yeah, he's also one of the only people, like Politico, who's talked about Omar al-Bayoumi and the Saudi connection and 9/11. And I know
yeah.
that Mike Pence has been trying to attack him for that. But I mean, the facts are pretty clear, so we'll see how that goes if he brings it up.
Oh, so
Yeah.
he's in truther territory.
Yeah,
too.
he is. Yeah.
No, going for the QAnon crowd. Nice.
Is he also the only one like under 80? No, under
Yeah.
50?
DeSantis
He is.
is 44 years old. I
Oh,
mean,
that's
Really? Oh my
right.
God,
he
he
is
looks
young.
so
He
much
seems like an old
older.
guy.
Oh.
I know, he
Yeah,
really
no, he's
does.
44
He's old
years
guy
old.
energy. That's crazy.
he is.
I should have added someone. So let's see. Did we just add in another one when Vivek virtue signals young voters? Someone put that in. When I neglected Mike Pence a little bit and Ron DeSantis. Let's see. Should we do a every fifth time Ron DeSantis uses the word woke?
Woke, yeah. That's just
He's
what I was
A
actually
thinking.
whole bottle
really-
if another
he's
fly
actually
lands on Mike
backed
Pence's
off.
head.
Or maybe when Ron DeSantis, when Pence wakes us up.
Will that mean he wakes up?
No, it means he puts us to sleep. So if we
Oh, I
wake
see,
up when
right.
he's talking,
Yeah,
then
that
we
would
can
be-
take
yeah.
a drink.
Okay. Yeah, if he does.
Boring.
Yeah,
Very
I
boring.
agree. I agree.
DeSantis has backed off a little bit from the woke gravy train. by the
A little
way.
bit, yeah.
He went
Probably
too
because he
far.
learned that it's not as important to
You know,
voters as he was
who-
led to
you know
believe.
who backed him off was Trump. Trump kind of shut the whole woke thing down. He was like, it doesn't mean anything anymore. There's no
Right.
mind it.
So what about the abortion thing? Will they all come up with how many weeks? Like,
Oh yeah, this is a good one. Let me add this. I'm adding some last
6
minute.
weeks, 10 weeks, no, 12 weeks, no, federal ban, no.
Oh yeah, if they
state-
try to out abort, if they
Yeah.
try to out anti
out unabort each
yeah.
other.
Out
Yeah.
on a board.
Yeah.
Here's my question: out of everyone on the stage, which one do you think would be the best president?
Ooh.
Oh,
All of
God.
them.
Is that what this is about?
Well,
That's a
I
good
mean,
question.
taking all the bad qualities and all the interesting ones and all
I think the one who
all the
would actually
whatever.
be most status quo in terms of the level of horrible he would be is Chris Christie.
It's Chris Christie, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. You think Chris Christie? That's very interesting.
Meaning
He
the
I'm not
best
saying
of
that
the
makes him
bunch?
the best president. I'm saying he would be the most status quo, horrible Republican.
Well, because he's also
The least bad.
he's somewhat competent, right, as administrator.
He's been a governor of a state.
Oh, you're saying he's the least bad. You're saying he'd be
No,
the
he's
least.
the least bad because
I
he's
see.
played Republican governor in a stronghold of Democratic
Right, I see,
triangulation of states and understands how to play the game of compromise, and also has governed the state where he can't go that crazy. He can't be DeSantis in New Jersey
Right.
because it's, you got a strong union base. The Democratic Party is relatively strong. So he's not going to go as far as a DeSantis if he gets in power. DeSantis will be crazy. Pence will be crazy. The rest of them will all be crazy. But I think that Chris Christie would be a horrible, mediocre Republican. I mean, I'm not saying he wouldn't be horrible, but he would
Right.
be typical horrible Republican.
It's a deliberately loaded question.
Yeah, it's a trap.
It's a trap.
But
Yeah.
I
I'm
think
not
Ni-
answering.
I think Nikki Haley is kind of in the same basic range, maybe, although she's kind of more of a mystery meat, I think, than Chris Christie. Like I can't tell what she's up to or what she thinks, but she's also kind of a standard Republican.
But the thing is, though, she
Right.
governed a profoundly reactionary state, which makes me kind of worried about her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is a super hawk too on
Yeah,
foreign
she's
policy
active.
issues.
Her
I mean, we
foreign
saw
policy
her at the
issues.
UN.
I
Our
thought you
foreign
said
policy
super
issues
hot.
are-
I thought you said super
Super
hot. I was like,
hot.
yeah, that's so
That too.
objectifying.
She
So
thinks
objectifying.
she's super hot,
does
but
think she
she's
is, yeah.
super hawk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
her
super
foreign
hot.
policy is horrible. When
Yeah,
she,
it's
her-
Yeah,
really
you
awful.
can't get like, I mean, she even outdoes Biden maybe with the pro-Israel.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
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 What is Vivek's like domestic agenda? I have not been paying attention much to the Republican race, mostly because I feel like it's Trump's game and these guys are all like clown shows. But what does he actually believe? Like,
The
He
biggest
wants
thing
to.
Go ahead.
So he has this thing called like civic duty voting, where he wants to increase the voting age to 25. Or if you're 18, you have to pass a civics test, or you have to serve in the military for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
So
He's
basically,
so
he wants
free
to-
market.
He wants to deny suffrage to
Yeah,
adults.
it's weird.
Yeah, he's
That's
super
weird.
free market, and I think he's came up with this interesting thing about the fundraising. Did you catch that? That any of you could be a fundraiser for me and make money at the same time,
Wow.
and you get 10% commission for any money you raise for me. Let's take it away from the oligarchs that make big money from these campaigns, and let's give it to the ordinary people. I thought that was brilliant.
He strikes me as one of those Republicans.
it's like if Andrew Yang was dumber.
Yeah, he strikes me as one of those Republicans who said the cornball line is like, you know, Social Security is a Ponzi scheme, right? We got to get rid of that. Yeah, he's totally within that mantra.
But Andrew Yang likes Vivek.
Oh, that makes it even more
It
scary.
makes sense to me.
Yeah. Well, and his whole persona sort of seems to be summed up as "I am America and so can you," right? He's kind of that
Yeah, the
line.
American dream, American exceptionalism, and with
aspirational.
and with the Indian kind of. He's like he's playing the model minority card in his campaign, if you will.
Yeah.
See, I was first introduced to him. I saw some clip going around a few months ago, and he was on like a morning show, and someone was talking like, well, okay, so what experience do you have like being any sort of civically engaged? And he was like, well, I don't think that's necessary. And I was like, oh, he's one of these guys. He's one of these guys who just thinks that just by sheer force of charisma and like fast talking, they can just get to, the highest levels. And it's going to work to some extent, which is really an indictment of everyone.
No, the one thing that I learned from the 2016 election is that do not sleep on the importance of the Republican primary. That is one thing I learned because I was not paying attention to the Republican primaries in 2016, and I had a friend who was watching very closely. I mean, extremely early on, he was like, Trump is going to be the nominee. And I was like, what are you talking about? Are you out of your mind? He was like, no, I'm telling you, Trump is going to be the nominee.
Keith Ellison said that too, and he got laughed at.
Yeah. And he was watching the Republican nomination process very closely. And from that point on, I was like, you cannot sleep on watching the Republican nomination because, first of all, let's be transparent. The Republican nomination process is more democratic than the Democrats because they don't have the super delegate. They don't have the super delegate system.
Well, also look at how the Republican candidates are getting all this airtime when they poll much lower than Bobby Kennedy or Marianne Williamson, and they're not even pretending to have these people on. They have on Dean Phillips, who isn't even running, but thinks someone else should run against Biden. This centrist, corporate, milquetoast, moderate Democrat. They have him on, but not the people actually running for office.
Well, guess what? Cornel West was on Meet the Press last night.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah,
Oh wow.
Yep.
I think that Cornel West, they think is like, he's more of a known entity in some ways, although Kennedy is obviously, but Cornel West has been able to penetrate the media in ways that Williamson and Kennedy haven't been able to.
Well, the Republicans and Fox News, love to have Cornel because they want him to get enough points to push the election for whoever it is. That guy Trump, or who is that guy that's not going to be in the debates tonight?
Oh, Doug Burgum.
No, I mean Trump. And
Trump,
how Trump is so sneaky that he's releasing his a pre-recorded interview
know.
with Tucker Carlson at the same time.
He's so good at this. He really
so
is very good at
sneaky.
media.
Yeah. But how come there's all this criticism of Trump for not participating in the debates? And where's the criticism of Biden for
Right.
not doing the debates?
That's
Trump
right.
literally
Really good question.
stated, I'm ahead of the polls. Debates can only hurt me. I'm not participating. I mean, it was totally transparent. He was
Yeah.
like, why should a debate can only hurt me? I'm winning the polls.
And that's
Yeah.
one of the things people like about him, that he says stuff like that.
Yeah, first I thought it was because he wouldn't do that loyalty pledge. But now he's just come right out and said, why should I?
Yeah.
So Burgum isn't going to be here.
Is he? I know
I'm
he
sad.
injured himself playing.
I think he
playing,
is.
Is he? We
He
didn't know if he
came
could
to
stand.
he came to the rehearsal.
Oh, he
When
did.
he-
Okay.
He's very interesting. Like you were saying, Vivek sort of cultivated out this kind of entrepreneurial fundraising. Well, Burgum apparently just gives out $20 gift cards if you donate $1 to him. I'm not advertising for him, but apparently this is what he does in order to get enough donations to qualify to be in the debate.
Wow.
Basically,
I may
wait a
donate.
minute,
I may
wait a
donate
minute.
for him.
That can't
depending
be
on where-
legal.
Great, yeah. And then Asia Hutchinson did one greater in that he's just giving out $20, not gift certificates. $20, and he did it with college students. He figured out that like every college student knows 100 people who could give $1. So if they give $1, they get $20 for each new donor they get.
Wow.
So, and then I'm sorry that poor Francis Forrest didn't make it in,
Yeah.
but he had a great one, which he was raffling off going to see Lionel Messi in Miami, play in Miami. So they all have these gimmicks.
I want to know what the
pretty
gift
amazing.
certificate is for.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
question.
not-
Is it
For the RNC gift shop.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
I wouldn't do
It's
it.
not to Disneyland.
not just Chick-fil-A?
Yeah,
I
right.
did some research on some interesting stats. It seems that the hardcore percentage of the Republican Party that are do or die Trump people is about 41%, and somewhere around 57% of the party is still up for grabs. But what seems to be problematic is that all of the contenders for the primary have been fighting for Trump's 41% and haven't been trying to
Right.
cultivate the 57% of people who are kind of still gray area on Trump. So everyone in the Republican primary is fishing in the same water for the same voters that have already got Trump, that Trump has already got locked down.
And that's how they're like the Democrats, because they also don't know how to get people who to vote.
Right. They don't know how to cultivate their own base.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point. I happen to live in a Republican area. It's a Republican area of a blue state. And a lot of people I hear and interact with, like in my work life, like Trump. But they're also really dismayed by the way he's behaved since he lost in 2020. They're embarrassed that he's like a sore loser. And there's a lot of ambivalence. So I think that's the kind of people you're referring to, maybe, who are in the Trump sort of camp, but are more and more feeling like, can't we move on to someone else?
Did you guys
Well,
hear that the Ann Coulter is now writing for the New York Times in anti-Trump column?
Are you serious?
It's serious. She premiered today.
Oh my God, no.
Wow.
Well, Jen
It just
Psaki
keeps getting
had on
worse.
Alberto Gonzalez, as in the torture architect. She had him on Inside with Jen Psaki to talk about the Trump indictments, as if this guy should be anywhere near declarations of legality or democracy. I mean, it's like you can't make this up. This guy has blood on his hands from Gitmo and Abu Ghraib, and he's a source. But MSNBC welcomes him with open arms.
I mean, this is American media. I mean, do you think? I mean, you could under the Trail of Tears of the murder of all the people they have as military consultants going back 20 years. Man, this is the norm in this country. But again, as you know.
So speaking of prosecution, I think it's interesting that Asia Hutchinson says that Trump should be prosecuted, that he violated the law. And what's the amendment that he talks about? 24th?
14.
That he violated the amendment, that he engaged in insurrection. So let's see, he's going to come out swinging tonight on that, I think, because, so many of the rest of them. And, when you say that there aren't candidates that are going after the Trump supporters. Well, isn't that Ron DeSantis? Isn't that his whole thing? And he's done such a bad job at that.
No, but I think Pascal was saying that they are going after the Trump people. They're not going after the non-Trumpies.
Yeah, that's the problem. They're all fishing in Trump's waters.
Oh,
Well, they're probably angling to be his running mate, right? A lot of them.
It's a very good point. You know, that's something a lot of people haven't even considered yet. I think that the best running mate that Trump could pick if he became the nominee is Nikki Haley.
Yeah. And I think she wants it.
I think she wants it too. Don't forget,
she's been very diplomatic towards him.
She served in his administration. She was the U.S. ambassador to the UN, I believe.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
She'd be horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
She'd be rough. She'd be rough. Watching her debate Kamala Harris would be interesting, though.
Yeah.
Did you hear her say something how she wouldn't let unions into her state because
I saw that.
Taint the waters.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I told you, man. She'd be worse than Chris Christie, man. if she ever became president. I'm convinced about that.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty controversial when she won in South Carolina as governor. Even people of her own party, they said that they didn't want her to be governor of the state because she's Sikh. So some people had a problem with that. They didn't want her to be governor.
Wow.
Wow. Well, that's South Carolina history. That doesn't really shock me that much, but
yeah. Well, and it seems that's been an issue for Vivek Ramaswamy, right? That he sounds a lot of like religious slogans, even though, you know, he's from a Hindu heritage, but he seems to kind of want to reassure people that like his religion is legitimate, which obviously it is, but he's trying to kind of bridge to, you know, the largely evangelical Republican base, right? And he's had slogans about like one God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like,
So we haven't talked about Tim Scott at all.
Yeah, you're right. Tim Scott.
Sammy, you want to take that one?
He's the other one from South Carolina.
Yeah, and he's the positive guy. He's like, you know, glass half full.
America. It's been good to me. I think this is the greatest country in the world.
That's perfect.
Yeah, he just makes the most like
American.
He also just makes these really like what should be very obvious anti-racist statements that somehow require being said out loud.
Well, I mean, listen, one of the problems I have with Afro-Republicans, if you will, is that they spend so much of their enterprise trying to prove that everything that is wrong in the life of Black America is their own fault, and that they cry about racism. I was like, if you were just a fiscal Republican who loved capitalism, who was like, you know, all that other stuff, and just shut up about talking about, like, it's so interesting how we talk about race too much in America. Yet I have not met a Black Republican whose whole purpose is to be, you know, a basically racial, you know, whistleblower within the Republican Party. From Thomas Sowell to Glenn Lowry, to all of them, they're all race hustlers on the right. That's why I tell people all the time, there are right-wing race hustlers and left-wing race hustlers, and they're just right-wing race hustlers because not one of them has gotten an entree into the Republican Party without hustling about some aspect of race.
Well, guys, let's return to that because that's a great note to return to. Very provocative, important take. I think they're lining up. So should we go to the debate? And we'll keep talking, obviously.
Natalie Grant singing our national anthem.
And she is outstanding, and so is this. This is a live drone shot now, working its way through the arena. As we showed you this morning on America's Newsroom, you want to grab your popcorn, right?
Well, I was thinking that tonight I would love one of those pretzels with some Wisconsin cheese.
Yeah, you could get that here. This is Natalie Grant, and let's go.
Oh my God, look at Mike Pence.
He's got a heart.
Yeah.
Tim Scott looks like he's going to cry.
He's singing along.
He's singing.
Oh, she's also lip syncing.
Yeah. He also looks like he has skin lightener on.
You could hear her southern accent there. It's funny.
I
Proof.
know.
Proof. Oh my God.
He's making
so
some
awkward.
kind
Why
of
does
gang
he look
sign.
like he's
Yeah.
in so much pain right
I know.
now?
He's like grimacing. That was such a shit-eating grin.
Surprised I don't see more Rumble logos anywhere.
She looks kind of like Olivia, the late Olivia Newton-John.
Don't make fun of her dress, Katie.
I won't. No matter what. Looks like some, was that leaves or butterflies?
Looks like someone
landed on her?
glued pasta under her collar.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Looks like she's ready to go back to Kansas.
Yeah.
I would say there's a very kind of Wizard of Oz feel about that.
Yeah. I'll miss you most of all, Doug Burgum.
She did a good job on the anthem, though.
The stage, Martha and Brett are going to start.
What's up with this weird camera work?
Yeah.
Because you're right.
I mean, she almost makes you
nauseating.
feel like play ball, right, Harold? I mean, let's go. Let's go inside Fiserv Arena. The people here in Milwaukee have been fantastic, and they are giving us their best tonight. 4,000 strong inside, and you're about to see the first event of the political season. Where we end up in November of 2024 is anyone's guess, but tonight
this is
is
drone
the first
footage.
step in that
Really
direction.
working hard for this
Enjoy
single
America.
take.
We'll see you
Yeah,
tomorrow
seriously.
morning. Brett and Martha, take it from here. Good night.
So is Doug not there?
So it's eight contestants.
No, I think we saw Doug. Didn't we see Doug?
Well, he looked like Asia Hutchinson, so I don't know.
Oh, no, he has gray hair. Asa has white hair.
Oh, it was a drone. Okay.
Yeah, it was a drone. Yeah.
I was wondering, was like,
So we
I think
have
it's
wire or something?
it's Asa Hutchinson, not Asia. Although I appreciate the added diversity which they could use, but I think it's just ASA.
Oh, look at this. This is like. This is painful.
A state known for its beer and cheese, gridiron and grit, and also its razor-thin elections. In 2016, Republicans narrowly flipped the Badger State red for the first time since Ronald Reagan. But it was back to blue by 2020. That election came during an unprecedented year. The country was rife with tension. In the suburbs of Milwaukee, the division seemed deeper than ever. But that was just the beginning. 2 years later, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade, leaving the legality of abortion up to the states. In Wisconsin, that meant a nearly total ban. The power of that issue drove Democrats to the polls this year. Now, that new thin liberal majority on the court could have that abortion issue before it again, just as the race for the White House accelerates. Tonight, the Republican candidates will face off at the home of the Bucks and the Marquette Golden Eagles, hoping to return next July to this city on the shore of Lake Michigan to accept the Republican nomination at their party's national convention.
Tonight, the race for the White House takes flight. Welcome to the first debate of the 2024 presidential campaign, live at Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee.
8 Republican candidates have qualified and have chosen to be here on our debate stage tonight. They are here to lay out their vision for America, the battle as they battle for the GOP nomination. Good evening, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum.
And I'm Brett Baer. This is the very same stage on which the Republican choice for president will accept the party's nomination next summer. The 8 contenders are positioned by the order they sit in the polls, with the highest polling candidates in the middle standing center stage.
Weird.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Former Vice President Mike
shit-eating
Pence.
grin.
Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
Former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie.
South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
Former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson.
And North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum.
Oh, so he made it.
That's very
Made it.
Some ground rules for tonight. We'll ask the questions, and then candidates get 1 minute to answer. If someone is singled out, you get 30 seconds to respond. And when the time runs out, we all will hear this. Very
Whoa.
pleasant.
Very
So tonight, these candidates have a big opportunity to break out of the pack and to explain why they are best prepared to be the Republican choice for president. At a time when the likely Democrat nominee, President Joe Biden, is working to convince the country that with Bidenomics, things are looking up.
They call my plan Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it in a totally complimentary way at the time. But guess what? It's working.
Creepy.
But is it? More than 65% of Americans say the country is headed in the wrong direction. And here's the reality for some voters we talked to here in Wisconsin this week.
We have noticed a dramatic increase in prices at the grocery store just across the board.
Gas is high and food is high. A lot of people's out here homeless because they can't buy food.
It's tough when you got mortgage rates at 7-8% versus 2 to 3. It's just you can't afford a house anymore.
Inflation is ridiculous. It's killing us out here.
As we sit here tonight, the #1 song on the Billboard chart
Oh my
is
God.
called Rich Men North of Richmond.
That was
It is by a singer from Farmville.
Oh, they love that.
Oliver Anthony. His lyrics speak of alienation, of deep frustration with the state of government and of this country. Washington, D.C. is about 100 miles north of Richmond.
These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think, want to know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end. Cause the rich men, the rich men.
So, Governor DeSantis, why is this song striking such a nerve in this country right now? What do you think it means?
Our country is in decline. This decline is not inevitable. It's a choice. We need to send Joe Biden back to his basement and reverse American decline. And it starts with understanding we must reverse Bidenomics so that middle-class families have a chance to succeed again. We cannot succeed as a country if you are working hard and you can't afford groceries, a car, or a new home, while Hunter Biden can make hundreds of thousands of dollars on lousy paintings. That is wrong. We also cannot succeed when the Congress spends trillions and trillions of dollars. Those rich men north of Richmond have put us in this situation. And finally, we need to lower your gas prices. We're going to open up all energy production. We will be energy dominant again in this country. I showed it could be done in the state of Florida. I pledge to you as your president, we will get the job done, and I will not let you down.
All right, Governor DeSantis, thank you. Governor Christie, do you agree with Governor DeSantis just said there? And why would you be better on the economy than him?
Well, look, I do agree predominantly with what Governor DeSantis just laid out. And I think that if you asked every one of us up here, that we would agree predominantly with what he just laid out. Here's the difference. The difference is that we're going to have to work and make sure that we sell these ideas. And be able to put ourselves in a position where we get a majority of the vote, not only by winning the Congress and the Senate in 24, but also by having someone who's had the experience of doing it. Now, I was elected as a conservative Republican in a blue state with 61% of the vote, with a Democratic legislature against me the entire time. And we still, through hard, strong decision-making, brought them around to our point of view. We cut taxes in New Jersey. We cut debt in New Jersey. We made sure that each and every time we were confronted with bad Democratic ideas, we stood and stopped them. And when there were good ideas, we brought people together to make progress going forward. Truth and accountability are the things we need to do to fight waste. And I'd say the last thing is this, Brett. We cannot sit by any longer and allow the kind of spending that's going on in Washington, because every dollar they spend is a dollar that these people are not allowed to spend on their children and their grandchildren. It's robbing our country, and it's wrong.
Well, Governor, let me just follow up very quickly. New Jersey, when you were governor, had the second lowest credit rating in the nation after Illinois. It was downgraded 11 times.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what happens when you inherit a blue state that has done that. But when you look at what we did on debt, Brett, in that state, we cut debt in that state, debt that had been left to us by 3 Democratic gubernatorial predecessors of mine who ran up that debt tremendously. And what you also saw us do was to cut the unemployment rate in half. It was over 10% when I became governor in 2010. What we also did was cut pension payments to public employees to make sure that taxpayers were not being soaked by a public employee union system that was killing the taxpayer.
Thank you, Governor.
He cut
Governor
pensions.
Scott, Tim Scott, Senator Scott,
Yeah.
excuse me. The song also goes after welfare programs. As a senator, now President Biden argued for freezing federal spending, this was back in the 80s, and dealing with sacred cows. He does not talk about that anymore. You have been a senator, though, for 10 years. So what have you done to rein in the increasing size of government?
Well, thank you for the question. Over the last several years, I've had an opportunity to vote against spending package after spending package after spending package. What we also need to understand is that Joe Biden's Bidenomics has led to the loss of $10,000 of spending power for the average family. When you see 16% inflation, your gas is up 40%, your food is up 20%, your electricity is up 20%. We can stop that by turning the spigot off in Washington, sending the money back to the states, and allowing the decisions to be made at their own houses. I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act in 2017. We cut taxes for a single mom like the one that raised me by 70%, for dual households by 60%, returning to the average family $4,000. If you don't send it to Washington, we can't spend it. That's good news for the American people.
Okay, but just to follow up, you did.
And
during the
nothing
Trump
about cutting the
administration,
$1
you
trillion
approved,
military budget.
4.4 trillion, 4.1 trillion, 1.7 trillion over the course of that administration. That's a lot of money.
There's no doubt that during the Trump administration, when we were dealing with the COVID virus, we spent more money. But here's what happened at the end of our time in the majority. We had low unemployment, record low unemployment, 3.5% for the majority of the population, 70-year low for women. African Americans, Hispanics, and Asians had an all-time low, but our inflation was at 2%. Under Joe Biden, we've seen the exact opposite. We've seen inflation explode, which led to 12 Federal Reserve increases that's devastating home buyers today.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you're listening to these answers.
If I may,
Hold on one second.
We're going to, so I don't know if I get a chance to respond.
He didn't mention you specifically, but we'll be with you in a second, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Ramaswamy, listening to all of this, why should voters choose you over more experienced politicians on this stage? You're basically, a blank slate for people. You're 38 years old. You've said that you only voted in 2 presidential elections before this moment, this political race.
So first, let me just address a question that is on everybody's mind at home tonight. Who the heck is this skinny guy with a funny last name, and what the heck is he doing in the middle of this debate stage? I'll tell you, I'm not a politician, Brett. You're right about that. I'm an entrepreneur. My parents came to this country with no money 40 years ago. I have gone on to found multi-billion-dollar companies.
I should have had that.
I did it while marrying my wife, Apurva, raising our 2 sons, following our faith in God. That is the American dream. And I am genuinely worried that that American dream will not exist for our 2 sons and their generation unless we do something about it. And I do think, Brett, it's going to take an outsider, because for a long time, we have professional politicians in the Republican Party who have been running from something. Now is our moment to start running to something, to our vision of what it means to be an American today. If you have a broken car, you don't turn over the keys to the people who broke it again. You hand it over to a new generation to actually fix the problem. That's why I'm in this race, and we're just getting warmed up.
All right, to you, Governor Haley. So why
say
are you
anything.
better positioned to turn around this economy that we've heard all of these voters talking about tonight than Mr. Ramaswamy, who is a successful entrepreneur nationally right now? He's beating you in the polls.
Well, I don't care about polls. What I care about the fact is that no one is telling the American people the truth. The truth is that Biden didn't do this to us. Our Republicans did this to us too. When they passed that $2.2 trillion COVID stimulus bill,
Best response of
they
the night
left
so
us
far.
with 90 million people on Medicaid, 42 million people on food stamps. No one has told you how to fix it. I'll tell you how to fix it. They need to stop the spending. They need to stop the borrowing. They need to eliminate the earmarks that the Republicans brought back in. And they need to make sure they understand these are taxpayer dollars. It's not their dollars. And while they're all saying this, you have Ron DeSantis, you've got Tim Scott, you've got Mike Pence. They all voted to raise the debt. And Donald Trump added $8 trillion to our debt. And our kids are never going to forgive us for this. And so at the end of the day, you look at the 2024 budget, Republicans asked for $7.4 billion in earmarks. Democrats asked for $2.8 billion. So you tell me who are the big spenders. I think it's time for an accountant in the White House.
Vice President.
Wow. Oh my
But
God.
nothing again on the Pentagon.
No, she's terrible, but that was very well done. Really well done.
54% of voters say
Terrible,
the
but
cost
well
of
done.
groceries is a, quote, major problem for them.
Right.
You blamed the Biden administration spending for that increase. But as vice president, your administration spent more than any prior, $7.8 trillion added to the national debt, $3.5 trillion of that before COVID. So does that mean that you're part of the spending problem?
Well, first off, thanks for the question. Thanks for letting me respond to a reference to our administration's record. I'm incredibly proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. I mean, in 4 short years, we rebuilt our military.
Get a clap
We
or
revived our economy. We unleashed American energy. And we appointed 3 conservatives to the Supreme Court that gave the American people a new beginning for the right to life. Now, Martha, you asked earlier who's the most best prepared for this job. And I must tell you, with all due respect to all of my friends on the stage, and even to one that's probably looking on,
my friends.
I think unquestionably I am the best prepared, the most tested, the most qualified and proven conservative in this race. I was a leader in the Congress of the United States. I led Indiana where we balanced budgets and had a AAA bond rating when I was governor. And as vice president of the United States, we spent funding to backfill on the military cuts of the Obama administration. And then we were there in the worst pandemic in 100 years. All that being said, I was the first person in this race to say that we've got to deal with the long-term national debt issues. You got people on this stage that won't even talk about issues like Social Security and Medicare. I mean, Vivek, you recently said a president can't do everything. Well, I got news for you, Vivek. I've been in the hallway. I've been in the West Wing. A president of the United States has to confront every crisis facing America. I will put our nation back on the path to growth and prosperity and restore fiscal responsibility, just as I did in Congress and as governor,
Mr. Vice President.
and when I was vice president.
But I mean,
Hold on. Yeah. You were named earlier. I'm going to get Vivek first.
We'll get to both of
Yeah, this isn't that complicated, guys. Unlock American energy. Drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear. Put people to work by
like
no longer
drill,
paying them
baby,
more to
drill.
stay at home.
Like destroy
Reform
the
US
world.
Fed, stabilize the U.S. dollar, and go to war. The only war that I will declare as U.S. president will be the war on the federal administrative state that is the source of those toxic regulations acting like a wet blanket on the economy. So I'm not sure I exactly understood Mike Pence's comment, but I'll let you all parse that out. For me, it's pretty simple. That's something a U.S. president can do with focus, and I'll deliver on
Well,
it.
let me explain it to you. Let me explain it to you, Vivek, if I can.
Oh boy.
I'll go slower this time.
You know, I sometimes struggle with the reading
Look,
comprehension.
I was a House conservative leader before it was cool. I actually pushed a deficit reduction act. That was the last time we actually reduced the national debt in the United States when I was the leader of House conservatives. I balanced budgets and cut taxes when I was governor. I mean, look, Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. Now is not the time for on-the-job training. We don't need to bring in a rookie. We don't need to bring in people without experience. We need to bring
He was waiting to use that line.
Yeah,
he was
he
waiting.
did. Yeah.
Hold on, it's 30 seconds when you have a rebuttal, okay? And you are up, Governor DeSantis.
So here's the thing. Why are we in this mess? Part of it, and a major reason, is because how this federal government handled COVID-19 by locking down this economy. It was a mistake. It should have never happened. And in Florida, we led the country out of lockdown. We kept our state free and open. And I can tell you this, as your president, I will never let the deep state bureaucrats lock you down. You don't take somebody like Fauci and coddle him. You bring Fauci in, you sit him down, and you say, Anthony, you are fired.
Who's Anthony?
Fauci.
Oh, Fauci. Right.
I just want to respond to Mike for 1 second because he invoked me back. Listen, now that everybody's gotten their memorized, pre-prepared slogans out of the way, we can actually have a real discussion now. The reality and the fact of the matter is, not really, Mike, actually. We're just going to have some fun tonight. And the reality is, you have a bunch of people, professional politicians, super PAC puppets, following slogans handed over to them by their 400-page super PACs last week. The real choice we face in this primary is this. Do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Do you want incremental reform, which is what you're hearing about, or do you want revolution?
Okay,
revolution. Let's go with revolution.
We're going to take control back here.
We need everyone to have a moment on the economy.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Can I address the
There are
COVID
two
issue
people
that
who
the
have
governor
not.
brought up?
We're going to get back to that. We are. There are two people who we have not heard from yet. So let's hear from Governor Burgum and then from Governor Hutchinson on the economy, sir.
Well, great. Thank you, Martha. And of course, I'm from a town of 300 people. It's a big deal to make it on this stage with all these folks. But
we can drink for that. That's like when you forget who he is.
But when they were all wishing me well, and I think I took them a little too literally when they said, go to Milwaukee and break a leg.
Hey.
But I do want to say on this, we're missing something. We can't just talk about the Biden economy because the economy, energy, and national security are all tied together. Of course, we're paying too much for our energy in our state, in our country right now. But part of the reason why is because of the Biden policies on energy. We've got a plan right now, the $1.2 trillion of Green New Deal spending buried in the Inflation Creation Act is something that is just subsidizing China. If we're going to stop buying oil from the Middle East and start buying batteries from China, we're just trading OPEC for Sinopec. And then belatedly, the Biden administration says, no, we're going to put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, we put sanctions on Russian oil. Well, then it's 20% off. Who's buying it? China. So if you buy a battery in this country, you buy a solar panel, it's being produced in a plant in China powered by coal, or it's being powered by oil and gas at 20% off. And every farmer in this country would like to buy diesel at 20% off, just like they're buying it in China.
We can drink because he basically admitted it's a proxy war with China, so we can drink.
Thank you, Grant. Delighted to be here tonight. And let me just tell you that I'm a pro-life governor from a conservative state that have a conservative record in which I lowered taxes in Arkansas as governor. I created a $2 billion surplus that I passed over to my successor. And I made sure that we shrunk the size of government. We have 14% fewer state employees in Arkansas after I left government than when I took over as governor 8 years ago. I tell that because that's what we need in Washington, D.C. We need somebody who can actually constrain the growth of the federal government, that can actually reduce the size, and I've pledged to reduce by 10% our federal non-defense workforce. That's a specific pledge to make that attacks the administrative state. And let me...
They all love the military.
Wow, what happened?
No, Asa.
Lisa.
Uh-oh. We need you.
Asa, don't silence Asa.
Man, I'll tell you one thing. I was wrong about one thing. This ain't boring.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, and it's all about the deficit, but do the American people really care
lie.
about it?
I'm surprised that
Yeah.
they're
To be
focusing on
the
the
president
debt
of the
so
United
much.
States that can lead with positive solutions to be held accountable.
Thank you. We have a lot of topics to get to, and I promise we're going to get to everyone if
I'm
we
sure
play
what he
within
said was
the rules. Okay, next topic. More than 1,000 people are still unaccounted for in Maui after the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. Hawaii's governor and White House officials said that climate change amplified the cost of human error.
Oh, God. This is gonna
And a tropical storm hit California for the first time in 84 years. The ocean hit 101 degrees off the coast of Florida. And in the last month, the heat wave in the Southwest broke records nearly 50 years old.
So Alexander Diaz from Young America's Foundation has a question for you all.
Polls consistently show that young people's #1 issue is climate change. How will you, as both President of the United States and leader of the Republican Party, calm their fears that the Republican Party doesn't care about climate change?
So we want to start on this with a show of
Tell that
hands.
kid to shut
Do
up.
you believe in
Jill,
human
baby, Jill.
behavior is causing climate change? Raise your hand
Oh,
if
this
you
is
do.
gonna be
Look, look, we're not school children. Let's have the
Asa
debate.
raised his
I mean,
hand.
I'm happy to take it to start. Alexander?
So do you want to raise your hand or not?
I don't think that's the way to do. So let me just say to Alexander,
He's raising
this.
his hand.
First of all, one of the
Asa was the
reasons
only
our
one who
country's
raised it.
decline is because of the way the corporate media treats Republicans versus Democrats. Biden was on the beach while those people were suffering. He was asked about it. He said, no comment. Are you kidding me? As somebody that's handled disasters in Florida, you got to be activated. You've got to be there. You've got to be present. You've got to be helping people who are doing this.
And answer the question?
And here's the deal.
Let's just answer the question.
So is that a yes or is that a yes?
Yeah.
Is that a hand raise?
You do not.
I think it was a hand raise for him, and it's my hands are in my pockets.
No,
because
no,
the
I
climate
didn't
change
raise-
agenda
I
is
didn't raise a
hoax. Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a
That's
hoax.
just ridiculous.
The climate change agenda is a hoax.
You look
And we have
there.
to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy.
He
And
loves
so the
the wet
reality
blanket
is
metaphor.
more people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of actual climate
Governor
change.
Haley, are you bought
The
and
death
paid
rate is
for?
down by
Hold on, hold on.
It's funny. They're going to fact check him for
Listen,
this, and he's going to pull up some
wait,
weird
hold on,
stats.
hold on.
I can
Yeah.
get.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here.
Which one?
Which one?
The last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, "What's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here?" was Barack Obama, and I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on stage
But
tonight.
he won twice. He won twice.
Just like you did to
Wow.
and you'll help elect me just like you did to Obama too. Give me that
Also
same
kind of
type
racist.
Hold on, hold on.
Yeah.
Governor Haley, would you like to respond? Are you
So
bought and
Brett,
paid
what I
for?
would like to say
Well, I
is the
think-
fact that I
well.
think this is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done,
Drink.
ask a woman.
Drink, remember?
Uh-oh.
Drink, guys. This is it.
Oh, boss.
7 minute talking points
We do
coming
care
from
about
Nikki Haley.
clean air, clean water. We want to see that taken care of, but there's a right way to do it. And the right way to do it is, first of all, yes, is climate change real? Yes, it is. But if you want to go and really change the environment, then we need to start telling China and India that they have to lower their emissions. That's where our problem is. And these green subsidies that Biden has put in, all he's done is help China, because he doesn't understand all these electric vehicles that he's done, what that does. Half of the batteries for electric vehicles are made in China. And so that's not helping the environment. You're putting money in China's pocket, and Biden did that. So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge the truth, which is these subsidies are not working. We also need to take on the international world and say, okay, India and China, you've got to stop polluting. And that's when we'll start to deal with
Senator
climate-
Scott, are you
climate
bought and paid for?
Absolutely.
Are you bought and paid for?
I'm sorry.
Are you bought and paid
Absolutely not. I mean, here's
I
what
thought
the
he said
American people
absolutely.
deserve: is a debate about the issues that affect their lives. Going back and forth, being childish, is not helpful to the American people to decide on the next leader of our country. Number one, wait a second. Number two, as a kid who grew up in a single-parent household mired in poverty, I wondered, was
The
the
second time
American
he said
dream
that.
real for kids who are devastated by poverty, devastated by the challenges of life? I came to the conclusion that America can do for anyone what she's done for me if we focus on restoring hope, creating opportunities, and protecting America. If we want the environment to be better, and we all do, the best thing to do is to bring our jobs home from China. If we create 10 million new jobs in my Made in America plan, we will have a better economy and a better environment. Let me tell you why I say that, Brett. America,
Do it quickly.
America has cut. I'm a Southern boy. I talk slow. So America that was quick. America has cut our carbon footprint in half in the last 25 years. The places where they are continuing to increase, Africa, 950 million people. India, over 1 billion. China, over 1 billion. Why would we put ourselves at a disadvantage, devastating our own economy? Let's bring our jobs home.
We have a lot of different topics to get to.
Yeah, we do. We thank you all. Thank you, Senator Scott. So coming up next, the candidates will weigh in on what could be a defining issue in the 2024 campaign. The first Republican debate continues moments away.
Nothing about the military.
Yeah, nothing about
Nothing. They all love the military.
They all
Cut
love
the
it.
budget, but don't touch the military.
Smarter
in how we talk
Who
about
was
it.
it who said that they'll cut
They did a good round on political economy.
They're awful.
Yeah.
I think, like, I was kind of amazed by what a good job Nikki Haley's doing.
She did a very good job. I mean, let me tell you something. You're not going to find Democrats interrogate political economy in a debate this way. I've never seen it. Not like this amongst themselves. No, it's you. When are you going to hear a Democrat and Democrat debate say it's the Democrats' fault that they signed on to XYZ problems? So, I mean, their politics are horrific. They're globally destructive. But again, my position in trying to be moderately objective here is that they are more democratic than the Democratic Party in terms of exchange of ideas, self-criticism, and everything else. And I think that people who watch this debate are not going to be, they might think, yeah, the problems are horrible, the politics are horrible, but we have to understand something. We're lefties. This is a center-right country. Like, our politics are not what's hot in these streets, to be transparently honest. And
it depends. I mean, it depends a little bit on what we're talking about.
Where, Katie?
Well, like Medicare for all, it depends on how you ask the question. Or
Minimum wage, yeah.
Minimum wage. I mean, they started out with that song, Richmond, North of Richmond. And I don't know if anybody saw the Billy Bragg response, which says, join a union. But I'm surprised they talk so much about the deficit, government spending, and not about, how to improve people's lives. And there you'd have to be talking about decent wages.
Well, the thing is, though, in the face of the fact that they're trying to paint Bidenomics as the cause of the malaise people are suffering through in the body politic, I think it's effective to highlight all. If you're trying to paint Biden's spending as why Americans are suffering, and you're a Republican, and you show that's why we need to cut X, Y, Z, to the person who's suffering, he's like, do whatever you need to do to make it better. And if that's what it needs to be done to make it better, because it ain't working now, we have to realize, as people who are consumers of politics, most people don't even like politics. A lot of people aren't really into watching politics as much as we are. And I think sometimes we overestimate the amount of political awareness the average American citizen actually has as to what these politicals are working and how the system actually works. So the point I'm trying to make is that this debate is more interesting than I thought it would be. And I think it's going to captivate some people's attention who are not necessarily Republicans.
Yeah.
What you're saying is why I was surprised that Biden is actually doing the whole Bidenomics thing. Like, I mean, they know that it's very unpopular, and they're making it very easy for everyone in this debate to just say, oh, well, the economy's bad. And since most people don't know how the economy works, they hear something like, oh, the debt's big. And they're like, yeah, that makes sense. And so it's easy for these people to use it and hammer it over and over again. Meanwhile, they don't care about the debt. Everyone knows that.
Right.
Well, it struck me. It's just struck me that in this very early stage, it may be that these guys are not so much aiming at the broad mass of voters as much as donors, that they're trying to hit like the Republican kind of donor base, the people who are really in and following and who are wealthy, right? And they want to hear about deficit, debt, at some point they'll probably talk about capital gains, things like that. They're not really talking to the people who are suffering, right? That's what it sounds like to me.
Sabby,
Yeah,
what
but
were you saying? Yeah, Sabby.
I think it's really interesting that Vivek continues to say that his parents came here with no money, but he leaves out that his parents came here with degrees. Like his dad was an engineer, his mom was a doctor. Like it's not like he, grew up like working class, but he leaves that out. But he continues to say that in almost every engagement I see him have.
And not only that, Vivek always likes to lecture Black Americans on what they're not taking advantage of. That's one of his very favorite hobbies.
And even in red states, there are more swing state referendums that are coming up as we head into the elections as well on this. So, Governor Haley, what do you say to your party and to your state, which today confirmed a 6-week abortion law as well, especially the impact on women suburban voters across this country?
Thank you, Martha. I am unapologetically pro-life, not because the Republican Party tells me to be, but because my husband was adopted and I had trouble having both of my children. So I'm surrounded by blessings. Having said that, we need to stop demonizing this issue. This is talking about the fact that unelected justices didn't need to decide something this personal because it's personal for every woman and man. Now it's been put in the hands of the people. That's great. When it comes to a federal ban, let's be honest with the American people and say it will take 60 Senate votes. It will take a majority of the House. So in order to do that, let's find consensus. Can't we all agree that we should ban late-term abortions? Can't we all agree that we should encourage adoptions? Can't we all agree that doctors and nurses who don't believe in abortion shouldn't have to perform them? Can't we all agree that contraception should be available? And can't we all agree that we are not going to put a woman in jail or give her the death penalty if she gets an abortion? Let's treat this like a respectful issue that it is and humanize the situation and stop demonizing the situation.
Brett,
Pro contraception. That is interesting.
Vice President Pence. Governor DeSantis, you signed a 6-week abortion ban in Florida. One of your biggest financial backers said that you need to, quote, shift to get moderates or you will lose. What do you say to him and others who say politically that is a tough thing to sell nationally?
Well, I would say we sold the biggest election landslide victory in the history of the Republican Party in the state of Florida in 2022. That's what I did. We can win. But second of all, look, you got to do what you think is right. I believe in a culture of life. I was proud to sign the heartbeat bill. I remember one of the most impactful moments of my life was when I heard the heartbeat of my oldest daughter in my wife's womb and then saw the sonograms of all 3 of my kids. What the Democrats are trying to do on this issue is wrong, to allow abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. I know a lady in Florida named Penny. She survived multiple abortion attempts. She was left discarded in a pan. Fortunately, her grandmother saved her and brought her to a different hospital. We're better than what the Democrats are selling. We are not going to allow abortion all the way up till birth, and we will hold them accountable for their extremism.
But just to be clear, Governor, would you sign a 6-week ban federally?
I'm going to stand on the side of life. Look, I understand Wisconsin is going to do it different than Texas. I understand Iowa and New Hampshire are going to do different. But I will support the cause of life as governor and as president.
Vice President Pence, you're shaking your head.
We must have a national.
Hold on, Senator. Vice President Pence, you're shaking your head.
Well, look, I'm not new to this cause. After I gave my life to Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I opened up the book and I read, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And see, I set before you life and death, blessings and curses, now choose life. And I knew from that moment on, the cause of life had to be my cause. And I've been a champion for life in the Congress, a champion for life as governor,
I thought he was going to
and
say
as
he was
vice president.
in a pan alley.
To be honest with you, Nikki, you're my friend, but consensus is the opposite of leadership. When the Supreme Court returned this question to the American people, they didn't just send it to the states only. It's not a states only issue, it's a moral issue. And I promise you, as President of the United States, the American people will have a champion for life in the Oval Office. Can't we have a minimum standard in every state in the nation that says when a baby is capable of feeling pain, an abortion cannot be allowed. A 15-week ban is an idea whose time has come. It's supported by 70% of the American
They're
people.
doing the weak thing.
But it's going to take unapologetic leadership, leadership that stands on principle and expresses compassion for women in crisis pregnancies. I'll do that as president of the United States.
He called my name, so I want to respond to that.
30 seconds.
So first of all, I will say it is in the hands of the people, and that's where it should be. But when you're talking about a federal ban, be honest with the American people. We haven't had 45 pro-life senators in over 100 years. So no Republican president can ban abortions any more than a Democrat president could ban all those state laws. Don't make women feel like they have to decide on this issue when you know we don't have 60 Senate votes in the House.
70% of the American people support legislation
But
to ban
70%
abortion
of the
after a
Senate
baby is
does
capable
not.
of experiencing pain.
Oh, wow.
Leadership.
Hold on.
Oh, 70% of the Senate does not. You have to be
It's
honest
funny
with
when
the
they talk
American
about
people.
reality.
All right, let's get Governor Bergman for one minute here. But the Supreme Court did overturn Roe v. Wade, and the result of that decision was that it went back to the states. So that's where it is right now. So as I understand it, you are not in favor of a federal ban. What do you say about the states? There's about 5 of them, including New Jersey, I think a few others, that allow abortion up until the time of birth, though. If you were president, would you be able to abide that?
That's not
Well, first of all, I'm a pro-life governor of a very pro-life state. And this issue is, of course, very important. But I am on the record, and I stand behind that we should not have a federal abortion ban. We should not. And the reason why we shouldn't is very simple. It's the 10th Amendment in the Constitution. In the Constitution, which the states created the federal government, not the other way around, it says that there were certain duties allowed to the federal government delegated to them by the states. The rest are left to the states, comma, or importantly, or to the people. We need to get back to freedom and liberty for the people in this country. And we can't have Republicans who fight for 50 years for this great cause and to return it back to the states. And then the next day they turn around and go, no, the feds should do that, because the feds are stepping into people's lives. They're stepping into people's businesses over and over. If we say that the feds should be in on this one, where do we stop? I say that we follow the Constitution, and this is returned to the states. This is where it should be.
But Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. Time out. You signed a 6-week ban. Governor Burgum, you signed a 6-week ban. So you're saying federally, it's all going to go to the states.
Yes, and what is going to work in New York will never work in North Dakota, and vice versa. That's
Governor
why 50
Asa
states.
Hutchinson,
That's why
right
50
here.
states.
This is too important of an issue that I have to address. First of all, the Supreme Court gave it back to the elected representatives, whether it's the states or whether it's the United States Congress.
That's
so there is authority. And that's why President Biden is pushing for a Democrat proposal, which is, in essence, abortion on demand through the term. So they have their extreme position at a national level. It's most likely going to be addressed in the states, but it's certainly fine for it to be addressed at the national level as well. Arkansas has the record of being the most pro-life state in the nation. I signed 30 pro-life pieces of legislation while I was governor. And every state can determine a different outcome here. And it is the most important issue for women and for the unborn child and for our country that we get this right. It's going to be a continued debate. Let's talk about it in terms of compassion, in terms of protecting the life, and also understanding how we have to enhance adoption services, how we have to enhance maternal care. Those things we've done in Arkansas and are important for our nation's future.
There are a lot of issues that are very important.
2008. He doesn't seem like he
Senator, I'll
belongs
let
on
you
the stage.
Thank you.
weigh in.
We cannot let states like California, New York, and Illinois have abortions on demand up until the day of birth. That is immoral. It is unethical. It is wrong. We must have a president of the United States who will advocate and fight for, at the minimum, a 15-week limit. I am 100% pro-life conservative. I have 100% pro-life record. I got to tell you, though, we must fight for life. Our Declaration of Independence says our Creator gave us inalienable rights that include life. That is a list. That is an issue we must solve.
Like they met
we can't
abortion?
leave it to Illinois. We can't leave it to Minnesota. We can't leave it to Illinois. We must solve that issue with a 15-week limit at a minimum.
Great. I think
Weak
we're
argument.
all pro-life, but
Thank
what
you.
I would
Argument.
love is for someone to ask Biden and Kamala Harris, are they for 38 weeks? Are they for 39 weeks? Are they for 40 weeks? Because that's what the media needs to be asking.
All right. Another issue is America and the
They ask
crime
that all the
crisis,
time.
the homelessness crisis. American cities are in decline. People are moving out as homelessness, drugs, crime move in. There are problems accelerated. They did accelerate during the pandemic and are still rising, actually.
Murders in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, all up 30% between 2019 and 2022. Homelessness is up 11%, the largest jump in recorded history. Vice President Pence, a lot of this began in the COVID era. How much of what we're seeing happening around this country is a result of those COVID lockdowns? And is your administration in part to blame for how we got here?
Well, I think what's in part to blame is the Democrats been talking about defunding the police for the last 5 years. And we ought to be funding law enforcement, particularly in our major cities, at unprecedented levels.
Right.
I mean, it's extraordinary to think about the violence that's claiming innocent lives literally every week in every major city in this country. And yet Democrats and liberal prosecutors in major metropolitan areas continue to work out their fanciful agendas, to do bail reform and go easy. What we need is strong commitment to law enforcement. We need leadership in Washington, D.C. that'll marshal the resources of the states, marshal the resources of the American people. But let me also say it's about opportunity. I mean, a lot of people don't know that those Trump-Pence tax cuts that we got signed into law go away at the end of 2025 if we don't have a Republican president and a Republican House and a Republican Senate. When I'm president of the United States, we're actually going to cut taxes further. We're going to extend those tax cuts, and we're going to close the Federal Department of Education, block grant all that funding back to the states. With a growing economy and educational choice and law enforcement, we will bring our cities back.
Governor Christie, another issue. This weekend here in Milwaukee, reports say there were 30 shootings, and a number of them including kids. Add that to the big increase in school shootings around the country. Democrats blame this crisis on easy access to guns. They also blame Republicans for blocking gun control legislation. What would President Christie do?
You know, I'm proud of the fact, Brett, that I'm the only person along with Governor Hutchinson up on this stage who's actually running United States Attorney's Office. I ran the 5th largest office in America in a state where there is significant urban crime. And the problem is not going to be solved by more money. The problem is that these prosecutors in these localities in the states are refusing to do their job and to arrest violent criminals. So what a President Christie would do is appoint an attorney general who would instruct each of the 93 U.S. attorneys that they are to take over the prosecution of violent crime in every one of those cities that are failing to do so. We have plenty of room in the federal prisons to lock up these violent criminals and clean up what's going on all across this country in these individual cities. Secondly, what we need to make sure that each and every one of these criminals understand is that the laws apply to everybody. And when Hunter Biden fills out a fake application, a false application for a gun permit, and then is facing a 10-year mandatory minimum, which was mandated by legislation sponsored by his father. And then you have a Justice Department that walks away from those charges. We're telling people that the law doesn't apply to everybody. In a Christie administration, he would go to jail for 10 years.
What about a President Ramaswamy? What does a President Ramaswamy do about guns?
So the reality is we have a crime wave in this country and we know how to fix it. The question is, do we actually have the spine to do it? More cops in the streets who are on the streets able to do their jobs without looking over their shoulder for getting sued. And we also have a mental health epidemic in this country. Just over the same period that we have closed mental health institutions, we have seen a spike in violent crime. Do we have the spine to bring them back? I think we should. As president, I will. But it's not just drugging up people in those psychiatric institutions with Zoloft and Seroquel. It's a deeper issue. I think faith-based approaches can play a role here too. We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. And I say this as a member of my generation. The problem in our country right now, the reason we have that mental health epidemic, is that people are so hungry for purpose and meaning at a time when family, faith, patriotism, hard work have all disappeared. What we really need is a tonal reset from the top, saying that this is what it means to be an American. Yes, we will stand for the rule of law. Yes, we will close the southern border where criminals are coming in every day. And yes, we will back law enforcement because we remember who we really are. And that's also how we address that mental health epidemic in the next generation that is directly leading to violent crime.
Can I
across
speak
this
on behalf of
country.
the American people?
They're not
Close the
dealing with
borders.
poverty.
Of course, yeah.
With that. We're not looking for a new national identity. The American people are the most faith-filled, freedom-loving, idealistic, hardworking people the world has ever known. We just need government as good as our people.
Well, Mike, I think the difference is you might have some others like you may have on the stage. It's Morning in America speech. It is not Morning in America. We live in a dark moment, and we have to confront the fact that we're in an internal sort of cold cultural civil
You
war.
are
And we have to
equating the
recognize
American
that in
people
order
with the
to actually
failed
win.
government in Washington, D.C. We just need government as good as our people again.
So, let me just finish addressing that slogan because I don't know what that slogan means. We need to shut down the administrative state. And Mark, that's actually how we translate it.
Crime has been on the rise in Florida, Governor DeSantis. How do you stop crime?
Well, actually, crime's at a 50-year low in Florida.
Not in Miami.
We're happy with that. Well, the statewide, it's a 50-year low. And so here's the thing. These hollowed out cities, this is a symptom of America's decline. And one of the biggest reasons is because you have George Soros funding these radical left-wing district attorneys. They get into office and they say they're not going to prosecute crimes they disagree with. The inmates start running the asylum. There's one guy in this entire country that's ever done anything about that. Me. When we had two of these district attorneys in Florida elected with Soros funding who said they wouldn't do their job, I removed them from their posts. They are gone.
Yeah, Soros is like woke, so we can drink. We can drink.
Oh, wow.
We are
Soros
going
and Hunter.
after all of these people because they are hurting the quality of life and they are victimizing innocent people in every corner of this country, and it will stop when I get into office.
Okay, one more here before the break, Governor Gorgon.
Brett and Martha, I just thought it was interesting. You asked your question about the problems we're having in big cities. Nobody ever asked the question of what about the crime wave in small towns? Because in a small town, neighbors help neighbors. People understand each other. If a farmer gets sick, everybody comes together and helps him get the crop off. There's accountability. There's transparency. One thing that I think this country could use is somebody in the White House that understands small town values, because that's our road back to get this country on track again.
Governor Hutchinson.
Very socialism coded.
Yeah.
Was former head of the DEA. I understand the drug crisis in America.
That's what he did?
And right now, whenever you look at the challenges in our inner city, there's three simple words that would be helpful. One, enforce the law when it comes to crime. Secondly, let's deal with the challenge of fentanyl. And it's both about stopping the fentanyl coming from Mexico, but it's also about education of our young people, making sure that we have the tools that are needed for addiction counseling. That's what we expanded in Arkansas as well. Whenever you look at the underlying challenge of America, though, no one likes to see an America with smash and grab in our inner cities. As President of the United States, that will stop. It starts at the top with the respect for our justice system that a former president who's under indictment has undermined by attacking judges, by attacking prosecutors, by attacking the system and saying he's aggrieved. And so we have to have respect for our justice system and the rule of law, and it starts at the top with the President of the United States.
Brett, thank you. Hold on.
Take a break.
Brett.
So speaking of that, right now you are looking live at Fulton County Jail, where former President Donald Trump will be processed tomorrow. So next, the candidates will have an opportunity to talk about the coming trials of Donald Trump.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Lots of drinking coming up.
It's like they don't understand that, like, more cops doesn't fix the poverty issue.
They're not trying to fix the poverty.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah.
They're going to throw all the people in jail because they think they're all dark folk. That's all it is.
I was surprised that they didn't say that they would solve the homeless problem by like rounding them up and putting them in camps or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think
that's what they think.
Yeah.
That's what Trump said. Yeah.
Vivek, I mean, I was shocked he didn't come out. I was like, well, all we got to do is put all the black people in jail and the crime problem go away. It's that simple. I mean, I don't know what's so hard about this. I was shocked he didn't come out with that one because, he's been so, race friendly and all that.
What was the thing that you guys said was unconstitutional, by the way?
The federal government stepping in.
AGs from the federal attorney generals take over the local prosecutors.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, enforcing state and local laws. That's not the federal government's role. That's,
Yeah.
obviously they're
that he's an expert in law is saying that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have
It's
to admit,
interesting. Oh, go ahead, Sabby.
Okay. I have to admit, DeSantis is doing better than I thought he would.
He is. I think it's interesting to me, though, is that no one's going really hard at DeSantis. There's a certain kind of feeling like they're almost kind of like, let's take handoff Ron and let him kind of run with the ball.
Yep.
I can't get over how well. Oh, sorry, Bryce.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that reminds me of it was like a debate like years ago. It might have been 2012 or 2016 when all the Republican challengers were like, "How dare you try and you moderators try and divide us? Like we're here together. We're standing united."
When was that?
You remember that?
Yeah, I can't remember which party it was though. I don't even remember which party it was.
It was Republican because I remember Chris Christie up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
when he lost the last time.
You know what's interesting is that Nikki Haley, I think part of her appeal in this is that she is almost being Trumpian in her fearlessness with which she's criticizing and critiquing the Republican Party, which is something that Trump did that really resonated with people. So she's building up a lot of credibility. I mean, even with me, and I think she's totally full of shit, obviously, and her politics are atrocious. But I can just imagine how effective she's being.
And she seemed to be trying to set up a sort of, I'm outside Washington.
Yeah.
This is all the fault of you guys who are Washington people.
Right.
And,
which is very Trumpian.
Yeah, right. Also very Trumpian, yeah.
A lot of people try to replicate what made Trump appealing to everybody, and very few people actually understand it. Like,
you think Vivek is doing that with I have never been a politician. I am a businessman.
I think he's doing it. I think it might be effective to the audience.
Well, he's carrying the water with that rhetoric pretty well, though. I mean, he's banging heads against both Pence and who else? Who else was coming at him a little bit? Chris Christie.
Yeah, Chris Christie. Yeah.
He's a little bit more. He's more glib than, that's like one of the most glib politicians I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This guy, Vivek. I don't know. He's a little too ready for prime time, in my opinion. But
he's scary.
The best comeback, Christie's comeback, this guy talks like Chat GPT.
Yeah,
That was a good one.
Can be very good at those. Yeah.
He comes from the Northeast.
Yeah.
Close.
Right.
He's not in New York, but he's Jersey. It's close enough.
Right.
But he's that was shots fired with that one. He was like, this guy talks like Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Wow, that was a good one. And I'm pretty sure that was spontaneous too. I don't think that they were prepared. I don't know. But there is something about Vivek where doesn't he seem a bit overly contrived?
I think his smile is too fake. It undermines his
looks
delivery.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he's just standing there the whole time,
he seems like he spent his whole life in a corporate boardroom pitching products.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, he was a Soros fellow also.
Are you serious?
Oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
Oh, right. And didn't they scrub that from Wikipedia or something?
I think they did, but someone sent it to me. They sent the website to me, and that's how I found it. But he was a Soros fellow.
They should definitely. I would love to see DeSantis going after him for that. That would be really funny.
DeSantis dropping the Soros name. Yeah. I was like, whoa, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. In point of fact, do Soros foundations fund progressive prosecutors? Is that true or not?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, I have no definitive answer to that, but I wouldn't be shocked.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, Soros money's everywhere, and he's a boogeyman for a reason.
Does Soros play both sides of the aisle? Does he
not really.
Mostly Democratic.
Yeah,
but
Ukraine,
it's all the same party.
Immigration, education. But we are going to take a brief moment and talk about the elephant not in the room.
Former President Trump has been indicted in 4 different states on 91 counts. He will be processed tomorrow in Georgia at the Fulton County Jail for charges relating to the 2020 election loss.
Apparently
You
he's
all
talking about
signed a
Epstein in
pledge
his Tucker
to
interview.
support the eventual Republican nominee. If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would.
Wow.
Asa's the only one who won't. Asa won't.
Hold on. So just to be clear, Governor Christie, you were kind of late to the game there, but you raised your hand.
No, I'm doing this. Look, I'm doing this.
No, I know you didn't.
Whoa. No, come. What's the look? Look, here's the bottom line. Someone's got to stop normalizing this conduct.
Okay, drink. I
Okay?
said he criticized Trump.
And now, whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States.
Wow. People booing? I can't really tell.
And you know, this is the great thing about this country. Booing is allowed, but it doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change the truth.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you raised your hand supporting.
No, I'd like to get in and respond. Let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact.
Well, how many presidents do we have in the 20?
Your
How many were
claim
there
that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if people at home want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice in this country.
30 seconds, Governor DeSantis.
You know, let me tell you
I'm sorry. 30 seconds, Governor
You
Christie.
make me laugh because
Goes
you
both ways, brother.
sit here in an answer. You sit here in an answer.
They won't even let him speak. That's good. That's so good.
You sit here in an answer.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
Hold on, Governor Christie.
Hold on.
Oh. So listen, the more time we spend doing this, the less time they can talk about issues you want to talk about. So let's just get through this section. Governor Christie.
You sit here talking about how you want to stand up for the rule of law.
Yes.
And law and order.
They boo again.
And the fact is that it can't be selective. In your book, you had much different things to say about Donald Trump than you're saying here tonight.
That's not true.
No, it is very true.
That is not
It's
true.
very true. I read it,
There's
and
a
I know.
difference
Look,
between
I
bad
know.
behavior and illegal
By the way,
behavior, Chris. And you as a prosecutor should know better.
Yeah, you know what? I know a lot
There's
better.
a difference between bad behavior.
And I know a lot better than you do. You've never done it like you've never done anything to try to advance the interests of this government except to put yourself forward as a candidate tonight. And here's the thing. We've stood up for law and order. I did it as U.S. attorney. I did it as governor. And I am not going to bow to anyone when we have a president of the United States who disrespects the Constitution. He said,
Your MSNBC contributor.
he said, Martha, it's important to say that the president said, Donald Trump said, it's okay to suspend the Constitution. Now, the oath you take is to preserve, protect, and defend, not suspend. I will always stand up for our Constitution, regardless of the political pressure.
We have another question for you. We're going to get everyone in on this issue, but I have another question. I have another question. Hold
He
on,
should
you
have
will.
quoted Vivek.
All right.
Yeah.
So President Trump's former vice president is on this stage tonight. He has faced hecklers on the campaign trail over his actions on January the 6th. On that day, the vice president moved forward with the certification of the election. So do you believe
He's so smug.
that Mike Pence did the right thing, Senator Scott? Do you believe he did the right thing?
Absolutely. He did the right thing. Number one. Number two, we should be We should be asking ourselves a bigger question about the weaponization of the Department of Justice. When I'm president, the first thing I'll do is fire Merrick Garland. Second thing I'll do, fire Christopher Wray, because we need Lady Justice to wear a blindfold. Without that, no one has confidence in our justice system. 17% of Republicans have confidence in our Department of Justice. Here's why. We keep seeing not only the weaponization of the Department of Justice against political opponents, but also against parents who show up at school board meetings. They're called, under this DOJ, they're called domestic terrorists.
Firing Christopher Wray, but that's shut down the FBI. Actually have the courage to get it right.
Shut down the FBI.
Not only that, in addition to that, we see the SWAT team show up at pro-life activist homes with guns drawn because this DOJ uses their power, uses their authority, not just against political opponents, but against conservatives and conservative causes. It is time for a change in America, and I will bring that change to the greatest nation on God's green earth.
Governor DeSantis, do you believe that Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th?
So here's what we need to do. We need to end the weaponization of these federal agents.
But that's
and I will do that.
That's not the question.
I know, but here's the thing. This election is not about January 6th of 2021. It's about January 20th of 2025 when the next president is going to take office. I know what the Democrats would like to do. They want to talk about all these other issues, but we've got to focus on your future. We've got to focus on reversing the decline of our country. I learned in the military, I was assigned with U.S. Navy SEALs in Iraq, that you focus on the mission above all else. You can't get distracted. So Republicans, we've got to look forward, and we've got to make sure that we're bringing the message that can win in November 2021.
Did not answer the question.
Vice President Pence, what do you think, Vice President?
Is to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I think the American people deserve to know whether everyone on this stage agrees that I kept my oath to the Constitution that day. There's no more important duty. So answer the question.
I've answered this before.
So yes.
Why are we? Mike did his duty. I got no beef with him. But here's the thing: is this what we're going to be focusing on going forward? The rehashing of this? I'll tell you,
Governor
the
DeSantis,
Democrats would love that, and they will win if we let them get away with it. I'm not letting Biden hang out.
Right.
This time, we're going to run him ragged around this country, and we're going to hold him accountable.
Let me just say, Governor DeSantis, we spent an hour talking about policy. Former President Trump is beating you by 30, 40 points in many polls. So it is a factor in the GOP primary. Governor Hutchinson, you did not raise your hand.
I did not raise my hand because there's an important issue we as a party have to face. And over a year ago, I said that Donald Trump was morally disqualified from being president again as a result of what happened on January 6th. More people are understanding the importance of that, including conservative legal scholars who says he may be disqualified under the 14th Amendment from being president again as a result of the insurrection. This is something that could disqualify him under our rules and under the Constitution. And so, obviously, I'm not going to support somebody who's been convicted of a serious felony or who is disqualified under our Constitution, and that's consistent with RNC rules. And I hope everybody would agree with me.
I want to hold my breath.
We're going to move on.
Martha, can I answer the question?
Can I get in on it?
Okay, I'd like to answer.
I've already been in on it, Vice President Pence.
All right, I'd like to answer the question you asked and not give a pre-canned speech. Mike Pence stood for the Constitution. And he deserves not grudging credit. He deserves our thanks as Americans for putting his oath of office and the Constitution of the United States before personal, political, and unfair pressure. And the argument that we need to have in this party before we can move on to the issues that Ron talked about is we have to dispense with the person who said that we need to suspend the Constitution to put forward his political career. Mike Pence said no, and he deserves credit for it.
Okay. Governor Haley, we haven't heard from you on this. Do you agree
Oh, this will be interesting to watch.
Pence did the
Let's see how
right
she does
thing
this.
that day or not?
I do
think
think
that's
that
the
Vice
needle.
President Pence did the right thing. And I do think that we need to give him credit for that. But what I will also tell you is, look, I mean, when it comes to whether President Trump should serve or not, I trust the American people. Let them vote. Let them decide. But what they will tell you is that it is time for a new generational conservative leader. We have to look at the fact that 3/4 of Americans don't want a rematch between Trump and Biden. And we have to face the fact that Trump is the most disliked politician in America. We can't win a general election that way.
She knows how to spin it.
Yeah.
She's
good.
More strong
To
with
answer the
Trump in this
question, Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th. But I would say you started off the top of this hour saying we're going to talk about China, Ukraine, education.
We are.
China is the number one threat to our country. And every minute that these 8 candidates spend talking about the past instead about the future is time that is just you know who loves it? Biden loves it, but
And
China
China
loves it when
it.
we're talking about the past.
Okay, as promised, we were going to spend a few questions on it, let people say what they wanted to say. And now, indeed, we are moving on to the subject.
The U.S. has committed nearly 77.
Can I speak on this issue? I was
You
kind of
did.
involved.
You answered on this.
You did.
You did
say
answer.
something.
Yeah.
We thought you were done, but you
No, I
please.
wasn't done.
Well, Mike, why don't you say this? Join me in making a commitment that on day one you would pardon Donald Trump. I'm the only candidate on the stage who had the courage to actually say it. That is how we move our nation forward.
Dude, Mike Pence just got
and through the page forward. That's exactly
Trump
right.
will be convicted of these crimes.
You should be able to make a commitment. The same justice system that was this.
That's the difference between you and me.
Yeah, I'm not a professional politician. That's the difference. You can answer a question.
I've actually given pardons when I was governor of the state of Indiana. It usually follows a finding of guilt and contrition by the individual that's been convicted. So, if I'm president of the United States, we'll give fair consideration to any pardon request. But if I may,
His laugh and smile are so annoying.
you know, it's not about looking back at January 2021. It's about January 20th, 2017. I put my left hand on Ronald Reagan's Bible. I raised my right hand.
I thought I was going to say
This is the
Ronald
third
Reagan.
January
something else.
date that we're talking
To
about.
support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And it ended with a prayer, so help me God. It was a promise that I made to the American people,
You know, he calls his wife
but I
mother.
also made it to my Heavenly Father.
Oh, yeah.
Every day for 4 years, I sought to keep that oath. And everyone on this stage needs to make it clear whether or not they'll do the same if they earn this job.
I
and
want
the confidence of
Ramaswamy
the
to
American
say,
people.
you call your wife mother.
Now, look, I've made it clear. I had hoped
That's true.
that the issues surrounding the 2020 election and the controversies around January 6th had not come to this, had not come to criminal proceedings. I would rather they had been resolved by the American people and the American people alone. But no one's above the law, and President Trump is entitled to the presumption of innocence that every American is entitled to, and we will make sure and extend that to him. But the American people deserve to know that the president asked me in his request that I reject or return votes unilaterally, power that no vice president in American history had ever exercised or taken. He asked me to put him over the Constitution. And I chose the Constitution, and I always will. I had no
Vice
right to
President Pence.
overturn the election, and Kamala Harris will have no right to overturn the election when we beat them in 2024.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
It's a major
Now we are moving on to other issues.
a major statement.
The U.S. has committed nearly $77 billion in aid to the Ukraine war. The administration is now asking Congress for $24 billion more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would
not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have
Only
Europe
two.
step up.
Okay, Vivek. Drink.
Wow.
Drink for
You're
Vivek
saying
Third
you
Rail.
would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight.
But you
Right
would-
now, they're not doing
you
that.
would not
and I
support
think
more
we need to
funding?
do.
Bro,
And I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we
Finger in
need
the
to do with
wind.
China.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to
Our
prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America. We are driving Russia further into China's hands. The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat we face. And I find it offensive that we have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or Kensington. I think that we have to put the interests of Americans first, secure our own border instead of somebody else's. And the reality is, this is also how we project strength by making America strong at home.
All right. We heard the names. Governor Christie first.
All right. Look, I did go to Ukraine, and I went to Ukraine because I
Bon
wanted to
Jovi's
see
lyrics,
for
handwritten
myself
You know that?
what Vladimir Putin's army was
Yeah.
doing
I'll
to the
tell you in
free
the
Ukrainian people.
next break.
And let me tell you, I want you all to look around this arena tonight and imagine that every one of these seats was filled. And if every one of them was filled, there would still be 2,500 more children outside to make over 20,000 who have been abducted, stolen, ripped from their mothers and fathers, and brought back to Russia to be programmed to fight their own families. They have gouged out people's eyes, cut off their ears, and shot people in the back of the head, men, and then gone into those homes and raped the daughters and the wives who were left as widows and orphans. This is the Vladimir Putin. This is the Vladimir Putin who Donald Trump called brilliant and a genius. If we don't stand up against this type of autocratic killing in the world, we will be next.
Drake, he criticized Trump.
Hang on. You were mentioned.
Governor Haley. We'll come back.
Vice President Pence was mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, let me be clear. Anybody that thinks that we can't solve the problems here in the United States and be the leader of the free world has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
That is incorrect.
We can do both, Vivek. We've done both. We've been the leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy for years. The Reagan Doctrine years ago made it clear. We said, if you're willing to fight the communists on your soil, we'll give you the means to fight them there so our troops don't have to fight them. Vivek, if we do the giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land, it's not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border. And frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let the Ukrainians fight and drive Putin and the Russians back out into Russia.
I want to just briefly address Pence. Vice President Pence. I have a news flash. The USSR does not exist anymore. It fell back in 1990.
Did I say
the real threat? You talked about the communists, and the real communists that we have to address right now
have any
is the
idea what Vladimir Putin's aims are.
You already spoke. Now I actually have something to say.
Vladimir Putin has been saying he wants to reestablish the old Soviet sphere
You've made
of
your point,
influence.
Vice President.
Now, if you think I'm sorry if I insulted him by calling him a communist. He is a dictator and a murderer. And the United States of America needs to stand against authoritarianism.
Mr. Ramaswamy, 30 seconds. Respond. The real threat we face today is communist China. And we are driving Russia further into China's arms. The Russia-China military alliance is the single greatest threat we face. Nobody in either political party is talking about it. And I am the only non-Everyone
is talking about it. All they're talking about.
Yeah, everyone's talking about it. Mr. Vice President, we can't hear
terrified of that multipolarity.
Mr. Vice President, they've got.
Mr. Vice President.
Give them a promise that Ukraine will never be in NATO. And then somehow
Mr. Vice President.
China will not think about taking Taiwan. We achieve peace through strength.
Mr. Vice
and
President.
America needs to stand for freedom.
Okay. Here we go.
I think we need to reestablish some ground rules here,
When we
folks.
hear this bell,
Yes.
that means your time's done.
We're done.
So, Mr. Vice President, we appreciate your
Has
aggressiveness
this ever
here.
worked in the history of
30
moderation?
seconds is 30 seconds. Mr. Ramaswamy, you were mentioned. You get 30 seconds.
So the reality is that today, Ukraine is
Wait, why
not
is
a
everyone
priority
upset?
for the United States of America. And I think that the same people who took us into the Iraq War, the same people who took us into the Vietnam War, you cannot end it. You cannot start another no-win war. And I do not want to get to the point where we're sending our military resources abroad when we could be better using them here at home to protect our own borders, protect the homeland.
All right.
That will be my top priority in foreign policy.
We gave you
protect
more
this
than the 30
homeland.
seconds in the rebut. So I do want to get to some other people because everybody, we respect everybody's time here. So Governor Haley, you did not raise your hand, meaning that you would support more funding for the Ukraine war. You have said of Governor DeSantis that you didn't appreciate it when he initially called it a territorial dispute. Why?
First of all, the American president needs to have moral clarity. They need to know the difference between right and wrong. They need to know the difference between good and evil. Right. When you look at the situation with Russia and Ukraine, here you have a pro-American country that was invaded by a thug. So when you want to talk about what has been given to Ukraine, less than 3.5% of our defense budget has been given to Ukraine. If you look at the percentages per GDP, 11 of the European countries have given more than the US. But what's really important is go back to when China and Russia held hands, shook hands before the Olympics and named themselves unlimited partners. A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said, once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin.
He's never said that.
When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American country.
Oh boy.
First of all,
wow.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. DeSantis,
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
I'm not on the
You've been pushing this lie all week,
You want
Nikki.
to go and defund Israel? You want to
Okay, let me address that. I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm going
to address each of those right now. This is the false lies.
You're watching the reality is America less safe. You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what? The foreign policy experience that you all have shows in the pointless wars we're getting into. I have to address that. So our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my first term. But it's not a client relationship. It is a friendship. And you know what friends do? Friends help each other stand on their own 2 feet. So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an iron dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles me is, I want to learn from those and apply those to protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel needs America. America needs Israel.
Okay, Governor DeSantis, you mentioned the territorial dispute. Not only...
no, it's not a territorial dispute
either. As President of the United States, your first obligation is to defend our country and its people. And that means... you're sending all this money, but you're not doing what we need to do to secure our own border. We have tens of thousands of people who are being killed because we're not handling both. And so I am going to declare it a national emergency. I'm not going to send troops to Ukraine, but I am going to send them to our southern border. When these drug pushers are bringing fentanyl across the border, that's going to be the last thing they do. We're going to use force, and we're going to leave them stone cold dead.
We're actually going to move on to China. We're going to talk about China.
Okay.
Governor Burgum, China has the biggest navy in the world, the biggest army in the world. Now they have warships off the coast of Alaska. They are threatening Taiwan. In coming years, China will have 1,500 nuclear warheads, it's believed. The U.S. just arrested 2 sailors accused of spying for China within our military. So the question is, how would you deter China as a president, Burgum?
Well, this is the number one issue we're facing. And of course, we haven't been talking about it, and we act like that letting Russia win in the Ukraine is like a gimme as opposed to a gift to China. Russia has become China's gas station. But how would we do it? The Biden administration is a complete fail. China imports 10 million barrels of oil a day, more than any other country in the world. They do not even have all the food they need to feed everybody in that country. So they don't have energy security or food security. But the Biden administration sends Blinken, Yellen over there. They're over there. They don't even bring up energy because they're too busy trying to kill the U.S. energy here. And what we need to do is not meetings, not press releases, because something that would send a lot more than a press release is actually Harpoon missiles. We need anti-ship missiles on Taiwan. The way that you have a war never start, which is the goal, the way you have peace through strength is that you actually have strength. You actually have deterrence. And what we have in what we've got going on in Ukraine is an example of when deterrence fail. What is an example there of Biden's disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the fact that he greenlighted Putin moving into Ukraine, and then now they see weakness, and when they see weakness, they make a move.
How did he greenlight
We
Putin
have to be strong, and we have to be strong both in Ukraine, and we can solve the southern border. Absolutely, we can do that, because guess what? There's only 19,855 authorized people for the Border Patrol, but they're not all staff because the Biden administration doesn't enforce law enforcement. But Biden administration wanted to put 87,000 people in the IRS as opposed to giving the money in this fort we need to our own Border Patrol.
Okay.
He talks really quickly.
Senator Scott, on China, that same question.
And I speak about China.
Let's fire the 87,000 IRS agents and hire or double the number of Border Patrol agents. I just left Yuma, Arizona about 2 weeks ago. The most pressing need of the American people from a national security standpoint is our southern border. It has led to the death of 70,000 Americans because of fentanyl, plus 6 million illegal crossings since President Biden has taken office, and 200 people on our national security watch list have been caught at our border. How many have not been caught at our southern border? If we just spend $10 billion, we could finish the wall. For $5 billion more, we could have the military-grade technology to surveil our southern border to stop the flow of fentanyl and save 70,000 Americans a year. That should be the priority of this government. And as the next president of the United States, I will make that border wall complete.
There are many more questions on China. I do want to ask about.
I want to say I couldn't agree more. It's not just the 70,000 from fentanyl. We've lost 200,000 people to overdoses since Biden took office. That's 300 people a day. We're taking mass casualties, and that's a statistic, but these are sons and daughters, nieces and nephews that we're losing. We've got North Dakota troops down there flying night helicopter missions from San Diego to the Gulf Coast, trying to stop these transnational criminal organizations. They've got better funding on their side than we've got on our side.
Speaking of which, Governor Hutchinson, images from earlier this month, Governor Hutchinson
with Mexico,
Vice President Pence,
policy.
Images from earlier this month. Vice President Pence, it really doesn't help. I'm asking a question. Earlier this month,
really doesn't help.
Images showed suspected cartel members crossing into Texas with rifles. Do you consider this an invasion? Would you authorize lethal force along that border?
There would be lethal force used by the Border Patrol, law enforcement as needed to protect the border. Absolutely. When you look at the military has to be used for intelligence gathering purposes. This is not unusual. Whenever I was in the Bush administration, we went down there and met with President Vicente Fox of Mexico and asked his help in going after the cartels. And he looked at me and said, they're a problem to us as well. And so we joined together and we took down the Ariana Felix brothers leading the Tijuana cartel. And that made a difference. Ramon was shot and killed and Ben Amin was captured. Cooperation makes a difference. We cannot be successful going against the cartel unless we bring in Mexico as a partner. We have to use economic pressure to accomplish that. President Obrador has not been helpful, and we have to use economic pressure that this administration is not using. The rule of law has to matter on both sides of it.
Okay.
This is critical. I've done it. We know what needs to be done. The military has to be limited in its use. When after 9/11, we had the global war on terror, and guess what? We protected the border at the same time. You can do both.
Okay, let's go to Governor DeSantis. So as president, would you support sending U.S. Special Forces over the border into Mexico to take out fentanyl labs, to take out drug cartel operations? Would you support that kind of American military
so ridiculous.
use?
Yes, and I will do it on day one. Here's the thing. The cartels are killing tens of thousands of our fellow citizens. You want to talk about a country in decline? You have the cartels controlling a lot of part of your southern border. We have to reestablish the rule of law, and we have to defend our people. The President of the United States has got to use all available powers as Commander-in-Chief to protect our country and to protect the people. So when they're coming across, yes, we're going to use lethal force. Yes, we reserve the right to operate. How many more tens of thousands are we going to let to die? I am sick. I've met angel moms throughout this country. I met a lady in Texas named Tracy, and her son took one Percocet that was laced with fentanyl, immediately died. That is happening all across this country because of the poison that they are bringing in. So as president, would I use force? Would I treat them as foreign terrorist organizations? You're darn right I would.
You know, Vice President Pence, why would you be better at this issue than Governor DeSantis? Governor DeSantis on the campaign trail refers to your administration as not finishing the wall.
Right. Look, we secured the southern border of the United States of America and reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. When Joe Biden took over, he threw open the southern border of the United States, and the wave of humanity, the wave of fentanyl that's been eloquently described here is a wave of human tragedy across this country. But Martha, you began this evening talking about who is best prepared to be the next president of the United States. And I have to tell you, with all humility, I was there when we negotiated through the government shutdown and got the funding available to build the wall. I was pressure. We got the Mexicans to deploy their National Guard to their southern border and to our southern border as never before. And I want to promise you, as President of the United States of America, I will engage Mexico the exact same way, and we will partner with the Mexican military, and we will hunt down and destroy the cartels that are claiming lives in the United States.
Okay, thank you. Another issue that is related to this is that almost 7 million migrants have crossed this border, our southern border, during the Biden administration. So, Governor Christie, what would you do about the 7 million who are here? How would you handle them? What would you do?
Look, Martha, the first thing we need to do is to stop any more from coming. That's the first thing we need to do. Then the next thing we need to do with the folks that are here is to, again, as we've talked about all night tonight, we have to have law and order in this country. We have to enforce the law. And what that means is to make sure that people who come here illegally are not rewarded for being here illegally. We have so many wonderful people from around the world who are waiting in line, following the law to try to come here and pursue the American dream. And those people are waiting and waiting and waiting because we haven't dealt with the problem of the folks who are here. We have to have them detained. We have to make sure that they are not rewarded for having broken the law. And one last thing on this fentanyl issue. With China, we can't take our eye off of that ball. Right. Yes, it's important that we secure the border. Very important, as I just said. But China is sending these chemicals to these drug cartels for them to create the fentanyl that is killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens. The Chinese are engaging in an act of war against us, killing our citizens. We better make that priority one in our conversations with China and to try to straighten that relationship out, because if we don't, we're going to lose more and more of our citizens.
I just want to clarify, would you send those people back?
Of course. You'd have to.
We have a lot of issues that Americans care about.
China
Next up,
war.
we're going to talk about the crisis in education, as millions of American children are not
I
proficient
wonder
in
what
reading
these people
or
can
math
cook up to
after
help
this.
education. I wonder. Like, are they going to just be pro charter schools, or are they going to be pro defunding education?
All charter schools and the wokeness in education.
Ah,
Stop
yes.
with the
The woke,
CRT.
I forgot about wokeness.
We have
with the
another
CRT.
guest we're going to bring on. Brad, are we ready to bring Jack on? All right, we're bringing on Jack Allison, the co-host of Struggle Session and Morning AM Jack. Hi,
Well,
Jack.
I'm good. Good to see you. Thanks for having me, Katie. Good to see everybody.
Thanks for coming on.
How exciting to be here for this display of bizarre fascism. I'm glad I got here just for the banning books section of the debate.
You don't want to miss that.
Yeah. But
That's
yeah,
going to be a great
glad
section.
to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah, sorry I'm late. I was watching the Tucker Carlson interview.
Oh,
with
how
Donald
was
Trump
that?
Yeah,
on
how was
Twitter.
that? Was it interesting?
How was it?
I didn't watch the whole thing, actually. I am just late because I was rushing over. But Tucker did ask Donald Trump if he thought Epstein killed himself. In almost one of the first questions of the interview was, did Epstein kill himself? And sort of grilling him about Barr's response to Epstein. And he got Donald Trump on the record that he thinks that Epstein probably killed himself, but that a lot of people say otherwise, and that you could make an argument either way.
Huh, wow.
What happened
That's-
in his administration?
Classic Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot of people are saying.
Right.
A lot of people are saying that perhaps.
I feel like classic Trump would have been more committed to one side, and the side would have been that he killed himself.
Yeah.
You can't do that because didn't Epstein die under Trump's administration?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what it was about. Although I will say, not that I think Trump's going to go to jail or anything like that, but he did say like, oh, Epstein was a guy who was used to all the finer things, and then he went to jail, and so he was probably so sad that he killed himself. I was like, oh, are you worried? Are you scared, sir?
By the way, Medea had to leave because she's going to Cuba tomorrow morning.
Oh, wow.
To do some really great work that she always does. So, but we're so happy to have Jack. So, anyway.
I'm not going to Cuba. I'm not doing any great work. I'm not doing anything.
No, yeah. You co-wrote a really good book, by the way.
I did. I wrote a book called Kill the Rich. Thank you yes, thank you. Thanks for saying it. You can go to killtherichbook.com. It's not a how-to book, unfortunately. It's
I was about
a fiction.
to say, tell me more.
It's a speculative fiction, near future book that comes out just in a couple weeks here. But you can pre-order it at killtherichbook.com. And if you go there, you'll see that the cover has a certain rich guy that, honestly, we wrote the book a year ago. It looks like Elon. It's a different name of a guy in the actual book. We wrote it a year ago. I was like, oh, everyone kind of likes Elon. And really, the world has come around on Elon in the last year. And so I'm very glad about that.
Oh, nice.
Are there guillotines in the book? Yes or no?
The book does open with Kim Kardashian being put in the gallows in a televised execution. So
that is good enough for me.
It's
Nice.
good. It's well written. Yeah, I really enjoy it.
Well, thank you for saying it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you haven't missed much, except that I think, to summarize, she's not as on fire as she was at the beginning, but Nikki Haley was really on fire.
I'm
She was.
surprised to hear that.
Yeah.
Who is this fella? The Doug something? Doug
Burgum. He
Doug
is a
Burgum.
businessman and eyebrows. Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
North Dakota governor.
Okay,
Yeah.
I heard about him that he nearly missed the debate because he had
did
a tennis injury.
Yeah.
Okay,
Which is like
okay.
one
So
of the
he
most
did make it though.
Republican things to have happen to you. Like the only more Republican thing would have been a golf injury. Yeah.
So Nikki was on fire. Okay. I was I looked at Drudge Report and I saw that the Drudge Report poll says that Vivek is winning the the debate now. So that's the
Vivek is
Drudge
kinda
perspective.
spicy.
He's doing pretty well also. Yeah. I think that we're back. Let's watch. All right.
Deep declines for reading and math for 15-year-olds and 13-year-olds. Governor DeSantis, you would eliminate, you said, the Department of Education. But as president, would you still have a responsibility to fix this crisis as we see it?
Absolutely. The decline in education is one of the major reasons why our country is in decline. We need education in this country, not indoctrination in this country. And in Florida, Florida, we stood up for what was right. First, we had schools open during COVID, and a lot of the problems that we've seen are because these lockdown states lock their kids out of school for a year and a half. That was wrong. We stood up. I took a lot of fire for that. I was pilloried by the media, but I stood for our kids. And as president, I'll stand for you and your kids as well. But we have to make sure
this man
that
does
what
not
our
have the
schools
juice.
are
Not good
doing
on
is
TV.
focusing on solid academics. In Florida, we eliminated critical race theory from our K through 12 schools. We
That counts as
eliminated
woke. That
gender
counts as woke.
ideology from our K through 12 schools.
His handlers need
and
to
we
teach
have
him how to blink.
elevated the importance of American civics and teaching our
didn't
kids
need to
about
when
the
he was torturing people in
Constitution
Guantanamo.
and the Bill of Rights. As president, I'm going to lead an effort to increase civic understanding and knowledge of our Constitution. We cannot be graduating students that don't have any foundation in what it
Amendment.
means to be an American.
not all of the
Mr.
amendments.
Mr. Ramaswamy, hold on, Senator Scott. You've said that the Department of Education, the FBI, the ATF, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the IRS, the Department of Commerce, many of these should not exist.
That's correct.
So to the education question, how would you deal with the crisis?
So look, we have a crisis of achievement. Let's shut down the head of the snake, the Department of Education. Take that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents across this country. This is the civil rights issue of our time. Allow any parent to choose where they send their kids to school. End the teachers'
Or to
unions
buy
at the
an
local
Xbox
level to
or
allow
something,
public
whatever they
schools
like.
to compete. And then revive our national identity where every high school senior should have to pass the same civics test that, frankly, every immigrant, including my mother, had to pass in order to become a citizen of this country. And the fact of the matter is,
Every time he says national
part of
identity,
education policy that also
visions
rests
of
with the family.
swastikas like dancing.
I didn't grow up in money, but the word privilege gets used a lot. Well, you know what? I did have the ultimate privilege of two parents in the house with a focus on educational achievement. And I want every kid to enjoy that. So part of the problem is we also have a federal government that pays single women more not to have a man in the house than to have a man in the house, contributing to an epidemic of fatherlessness. And I think that goes hand in glove with the education crisis as well, because we have to remember education starts with the family, and the nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to mankind.
You mean the men that were taken from the home to the criminal justice system?
Governor Haley has said that biological boys playing in girls' sports is the women's issue of our time. You said that even though you signed a ban on this in North Dakota, that there hadn't been one instance where it was actually needed. Are you saying that you think that too much is made of this issue?
Ooh.
No, I'm saying in North Dakota, we made a priority of protecting women's sports, and we've done that in our state. But I would absolutely do that. But I do think when we start talking about education and we think that we're going to have a federal government, one size fits all, we're just completely losing track of the fact that education differs by states. Some school districts are doing a fantastic job, some less so. But the idea that every school district, state, and every teacher is somehow indoctrinating people is just false. When I was building a company from scratch, with small town kids, and we went, grew up in a town of 300, but we built a global company in 132 countries with over 100,000 customers. We listened to those customers. We spent time with them. We talked to them. We did that. And as governor, well, education is one of the biggest part of a state budget. So as a governor, I shadow a student. The night before I find out the student finds out, I'm going to go to every class with them. I don't sit and lecture school districts how to do it. I go and see the experience. And there's a lot of things that have to change. But what needs to change in education is it's innovation. We're doing it the same way we did it 50 years ago with innovation, not regulation. I would get rid of the Department of Education. I would give block grants to schools, but I'd give them on merit based on who's doing the most innovative. I just got done holding the 7th annual Governor's Conference on Innovation Education. You should see what the people are doing when you cut loose the red tape, get the burden off their back. They care. Teachers in this country, the vast majority of them care about those kids. They're working in low-paying jobs, and they're fighting for those kids and their families.
Governor Haley, you said that this is the women's issue of our time.
First, I'll tell you, as a parent, the one thing you want is for your child to have a better life than you did. And we can talk about all of these things, and there's a lot of crazy woke things happening in schools, but we've got to get these kids reading. If a child can't read by 3rd grade, they're 4 times less likely to graduate high school. So we need to make sure we bring in reading remediation all over this country. We need transparency in the classroom because parents should never have to wonder what's being said or taught to their children in the classroom. Parents need to be deciding which schools their kids go to because they know best. And let's put vocational classes back into the high schools. Let's teach our kids to build things again. When we do that and we allow that innovation, that's when it'll get back. And yes, I will always say, I'm going to fight for girls all day long because strong girls become strong women. Strong women become strong leaders. And biological boys don't belong in the locker rooms of any of our girls.
Another point on education.
We're going to start the lightning round, and the first question is going to
it's
go
the lightning round.
To you, Vice President. So this is a lightning round.
Watch out for the daily double.
30-second answers, please. President Biden will be 82 years old on Inauguration Day. Nearly 70% of Americans say that he is too old to serve. Should presidents have to pass a mental and physical test in order to serve?
Asa says no. Asa is going to say no.
Well, it might be a good idea to have everybody in Washington, D.C. pass a mental and... But 30 seconds, no. The American people can make those judgments. But let me say, I'm running for president of the United States because we don't need a president who's too old.
This is an attack on Chris Christie.
And we don't need a president who's too young. We need a president who's been there.
He really hates
who knows how
Vivek.
Congress works, how the White House works, how states work. And on this education issue, Martha, I was fighting against No Child Left Behind when Republicans were doubling the Department of Education. I'll also shut down the Federal Department of Education. And when I was governor, we doubled the size of the largest school choice program in America. And we'll give school choice to every family in America.
As someone in Indiana right now,
this is a lightning round, Mr. Ramaswamy. I think you were mentioned there. You're 38. You're the youngest on the stage. You've said, and you just said, you want a civics test or public service for those under 25 to be able to vote. So the question is, do you want a mental acuity test for presidents over 75?
I believe in the people of this country to tell the difference between somebody who's an automaton and somebody who's actually a thinking agent in the White House, which we don't have in there today. And I will tell you, I want to address Vice President Pence's comment.
Ouch.
I think we do need somebody of a different generation to lead this nation forward. Look at the way I've run this campaign. Go into the south side of Chicago, to Kensington, in the middle of Philadelphia, where traditional Republican candidates don't go. We have an opportunity to build a multi-ethnic, working-class majority to deliver a landslide. And I think I'm the only candidate in this race, young or old, black or white, to bring all of those voters along to deliver a Reagan 1980 revolution. We're going to do it in 2024.
Same question.
My knees move. Arms
in a presidential election until 20.
I will answer that. I will answer that.
30 seconds.
30-second quick answer.
You guys need to get control of this.
Everybody's going to get
Listen, we're getting control of the debate. This is a lightning round, not rolling thunder.
This is a lightning round.
Governor Hutchinson,
Not rolling
you have
thunder.
30 seconds on the same question.
On education, first of all, look at Arkansas. We have to compete with China. I built computer science education. We led the nation in computer science education, going from 1,100 students to 23,000 students taking it. This is how you compete with China. As President of the United States, I will make sure we go from 51% of our schools offering computer science to every school in rural areas and urban areas offering computer science for the benefit of our kids, and we can compete with China in terms of technology.
No age limit.
Reasonable policy.
China.
This is coming to you.
Reasonable policy.
We're trying to do a quick round of different topics here. So, Senator Scott, faith is on decline in this country. You talked about it a little bit before tonight. So is there a role for a president of the United States in changing that? What would you do to change that?
Say yes.
Well, our nation was founded upon the Judeo-Christian values that has made this the greatest nation on God's green earth. I'm a big believer in Ephesians 3:20 that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or imagine. Our responsibility should be to model the behavior we want others to follow. On education, the only way we change education in this nation is to break the backs of the teachers' unions. They are standing in the doorhouse of our kids, locking them into failing schools and lock
Seriously.
them out of the greatest future they could have.
Terrible take.
As
Yeah.
President Governor
Right.
DeSantis,
Totally
would you support
predictable,
some
right?
mandatory military service for all Americans?
I think it should be voluntary. I'm somebody that volunteered to serve, inspired by September 11th, and I deployed
Gotta
to
go
Iraq.
torture. Gotta go torture.
alongside
people.
U.S.
Yeah.
Navy SEALs in places like Fallujah, Ramadi.
And
And
he
it's
looks like
something that I
someone
think
there.
has taught me, when you go in that type of environment, anything you have, your personal agenda, you check it at the door. You go there, and it's about
And
focusing
torture.
on the mission
Yeah, torture.
above
You
all
go
else.
there and you
guys come
waterboard.
together and they get it done. And that's how I would view being the president of the United States. It's not about me. It's not about all these other side issues. My sole focus will be on your future and reversing this country's decline.
And Disney.
Okay,
And the
now
Disney
for something
company. too.
a little out of this world, and this is for you.
Well, that's how he
Christie,
reverses
do
the
you
country's
believe that
decline,
there is a
obviously.
spike in UFO encounters?
Oh, okay.
The UFO question?
Yeah, you do.
Come on,
There
man.
you go. But okay, we've been hearing a lot of testimony in Congress, and people are taking this a lot more seriously. And we're hearing that there are things going on that people are
That
aware
is so
of.
funny. They
So,
gave Chris Christie
if
the
you were
UFO
president,
question.
Governor Christie, would you level with the American people about what the government knows about these possible
Look,
encounters?
Martha, and especially coming from a woman from New Jersey, I think it's horrible that just because I'm from New Jersey, you asked me about unidentified flying objects and Martians. We're different, but
Kind
we're
of a
not
non
that different.
sequitur.
Yeah, that's weird.
Look,
I don't get it.
He didn't
of
land
course,
it.
the job of the president of the United States
Is that a New
is
Jersey?
to level with the
that I don't
American
get?
people about everything. The job of the president of the United States is to stand for truth. The job of the president of the United States is to be a role model for our children and our grandchildren. And so whether it was UFOs or this problem of education, and Tim's right, by the way, and I started this in 2010 by going right after the teachers unions in New Jersey and drove them down to an all-time low popularity rating because they were putting themselves
gross.
before our kids.
So what does that have to do with UFOs?
Is the biggest threat to our country, not UFOs.
Okay.
That's
not
Coming up,
Jack, he
we've
just
got
read the
closing
needle there. He
arguments
read the-
plus
he
right
read the
after
Why
the
does Chris
debate.
Christie
I have the
like
hand-
losing
I have the
Live
hand
from the
primary.
spin room right here
Like what?
in the
That's all he
Fiserv
seems to do.
Forum with reaction from all the candidates.
Lose
as
Republican
soon as they
primary.
step
That's
off
what I
the
know
stage.
him primarily.
After this.
And write books. He writes a lot of books.
And he's a bully. Listen,
Didn't he
Gail.
fall asleep during a Springsteen concert once? Or am I
Oh, wow,
hallucinating?
that would be sacrilege.
Food blood, shut down.
Thank you, buddy.
We all know Mark Wahlberg.
Oh my God!
Marky Mark?
Wait, can
What?
we watch that? What's he
Whoa,
doing?
whoa, whoa.
Yeah, we gotta watch.
No, we have to
what
watch the
Mark is doing.
Dupixent ad
No,
instead.
no, no. I gotta get a new
Yeah.
pharmaceutical ad shoved in my fucking face.
Oh wow, Brad, you really laid down the law there. You're not letting us watch the commercial.
Oh, do you want to watch the pharmaceutical?
I
Well,
want to
we're
watch.
trying
Yes.
to-
We're trying to find out
Yes.
if Mark Wahlberg is down with the fash.
Don't play dumb, Brad. You could be showing it to us now. I'm taking executive decision. Nice stalling tactic.
Yeah. There we go.
Okay.
Clear
Oh,
skin,
no.
Brad.
Skin.
Clear
Passage
skin.
relief.
Gotta
That's such a
keep this from
tease. They
Katie's
have,
viewers?
yeah, seriously. So they have Mark Wahlberg at the beginning for like,
No, I think that this
I think
is
we
like,
got cut off by
I think-
the the web ad.
Yeah, Jack knows.
Yeah.
there was a Mark Wahlberg ad that got
Cut off
displaced.
by
Okay, then-
Dupixent. Yeah.
All right, I don't need this.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
Wow, Marky Mark and the
Oh,
Funky Bunch.
oh.
Remember that?
I'll be sure to ask my doctor about Dupixent.
Yeah. Did anyone here see the movie Fear with Mark Wahlberg?
I did.
Fear.
So good.
I remember that.
God, such a great movie.
You guys heard the story of how Mark Wahlberg, when he was younger, beat the crap out of like.
Yeah, and
Yes.
a Vietnamese,
Yes.
a Vietnamese
Yeah.
person, and then wanted a pardon, so
Yep.
only because he would be able to open a liquor license venue.
Right.
He didn't apologize. He just wanted the pardon, as not to quote Mike Pence, but Mike Pence, as Mike Pence explained, you get a pardon when you express contrition and you apologize. And he skipped over that part. He just wanted
Right.
the apology.
He asked Governor, at the time, Governor Deval Patrick for that, and he
Patrick.
said no.
Yeah, I lived in Boston in the '90s. Interesting racial politics in that state.
Yeah, really.
So I've heard. Yeah.
It's a little
Right,
bit
not
better than
exactly.
it was, but
So you're from Boston.
there's
You live
still
in Boston.
issues. Not originally from, but I've been here for over 10 years.
Yeah, I was there in the '90s. It was, interesting.
Yeah.
back when there was still rent control.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's neoliberalized a little bit since I left. Then
Rent control, man. I must have not been born for that time.
Yeah, they had it in Cambridge and a few other parts of that town. But
I was just wondering, do any of you think, like, I just can't get over how Milwaukee is like one of, I think, the only, either the first and or the only major U.S. city to elect a socialist mayor and 3 socialists to like high prominent places of office. And then Wisconsin, largely the deep history it has in leading movements regarding like labor and a variety of other things. Like, does that have anything to do with why they are choosing Milwaukee to kind of crack down or reverse all of this stuff? Or like,
I think that would require too much like thought on their part and knowledge of radical history.
Yeah, I think
they're probably like, some rich guy lives here. We got to make him happy.
And it's a swing state.
It's a swing state. Yeah.
What
Important
was the name
state.
of the What was the name of the really right wing governor they had?
Scott Walker.
Scott Walker.
Yeah. I mean, he really. And don't forget, Paul Ryan's from Wisconsin.
Yeah,
too.
and Grothman, Glenn Grothman.
Yeah.
Well, Wisconsin has been kind of a proving ground for like aggressive neoliberalization, and it makes a lot of sense. Like Milwaukee, it's this old industrial, largely working class, kind of ethnic immigrant city. So it's exactly the sort of place that used to be like a Democratic left stronghold that's now been pretty effectively yanked over, basically into the Trump coalition.
Right,
I mean, not to say that Milwaukee voted for Trump, but a large chunk of that kind of population has moved right from that one pole to the other.
No, not only did Milwaukee have a Democrat, Milwaukee was like a socialist, like radical left political haven for many years, going back in the early,
like 50s, 60s.
Yeah. And I mean, is Milwaukee turning purple an example of Republican populism actually working?
Yeah, well, I think it's sort of neoliberalism playing out.
Yeah.
It's like those
neoliberalism failing is more what it is.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I've been having conversations with some friends on the left about this trend of Republicans dog whistling populist politics, and of course we know it's bankrupt. They're not going to do anything. Let's
wait. Let's pause it. Sorry, but we're going to go back to that after
at least.
Dog whistling, okay?
9%. In his pitch to get to the Oval Office, President Reagan called America the shining city on a hill, a beacon of hope and optimism.
So in your closing statement tonight, please tell American voters why you are the person who can inspire this nation to a better day. These are 45 seconds, and we begin with Governor Burgum.
I understand why America's hurting. Biden's inflation is choking us. I grew up in a small town. My dad died when I was a freshman in high school. My mom, widow of 3, went back to work. Every job I had growing up was one where I took a shower at the end of the day, not at the beginning of the day. Our cities are less safe because of the fentanyl pouring into this country. Our economy is being crushed by Biden's energy policies, which are raising the cost of every product you buy, not just the gasoline at the pump. One thing that I'll do as president, I'll secure the border. I'll get this economy sprinting, not crawling like it is right now. And I would say that other thing is for sure, when I'm on a horseback in the Badlands of North Dakota, it looks like the horizon is just limitless. And when you can almost see beyond that horizon, you can see that this great country, our future is unlimited. But we've got to focus on innovation, not regulation. We've got to cut the red tape. We got to drive ourselves forward. The way we win the Cold War with China is by growing our economy and through innovation. And as president, I will bring out the best of America. I will improve every American life.
This answer is endless.
Well, we hope you're back on your horse soon.
He shoves it a lot in it. He needs to do an advertisement just riding a horse.
Our nation is in trouble. And it's in trouble because of failed leadership. And the solution is not 4 more years of Joseph Biden. The solution is not 4 more years of Donald Trump. The solution is new leadership that can bring bold ideas to America and to bring out the best of America. A president's number one responsibility is to bring out the best of our people. That's what Ronald Reagan did. And he did it with optimism and hope for our country, with consistent conservatism. That's exactly what I bring. As president, I'll bring out the best of America in terms of individual responsibility, building our economy, in terms of securing our border, enforcing the rule of law. I'll bring out the best of America in terms of our national character.
I gotta say,
our
it's impressive how
faith, and our hope for
articulate
the
he is
future.
without an upper lip.
Join in this fight. ACE2024.com.
Thank you. Senator Scott.
Thank you. I was a disillusioned young man growing up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty.
He
I
does.
wondered
He
if
seems
the
like a nice
American
grandpa.
dream was real for a kid like me. I can stand before you today and say the dream is alive, it is well, and it is healthy. I have the good fortune of a mom who works 16-hour days, making sure we have food on our tables. She taught me that if you're able-bodied in America,
Not everyone
you
should
work.
do that.
If you take out a loan, you pay it back. If you commit a violent crime,
Pay it back.
you
There
go
we
to
go.
jail. And if God made you a man, you play sports against men.
Really? She taught you that? That was one of her lessons?
I'm Tim Scott.
Citation
I'm asking you
needed.
for your
Oh, she
vote,
was
and if you're in
Tim.
Iowa,
Yeah, citation
I'm asking you to
It's all
caucus for
world
me.
that kind of
You can go
wasn't
to
happening yet.
votetimscott.com
Right.
for more information or to make a contribution.
Governor Christie.
I almost want to contribute to him.
Thank you,
Oh,
Brett.
there's a
Thank you,
little plug
Martha.
here.
Look, everybody on this stage wants to be the next president of the United States.
Got you.
Oh,
And the only way that's
And
going to happen is if we beat
We're
Joe
all going
Biden.
to lose.
I'm
to
the only
Trump
one on this
in the
stage who's ever
primary.
beaten a Democratic incumbent in an election.
It's inevitable.
I did it in a deep blue state, being outspent 3-1. Beating a Democratic incumbent is not easy. The last Democratic incumbent president who was defeated was Jimmy Carter. And he was defeated by a conservative governor from a blue state who knew how to get results, who stood for the truth, who cared about accountability, and stood strong and hard against waste. Those are the very things that I did in my 8 years as governor of New Jersey, and it's exactly what I'll do as president of the United States. Believe me, the Democrats want some other nominee who's never beaten a Democratic incumbent. I'm the one who can win this race, and if you give me the chance, I will restore our country by winning it.
Thank you. Governor Haley.
Several weeks ago, I dropped my husband, Michael, a combat veteran from Afghanistan,
Where'd you drop him?
off at 4 a.m. for another year-long deployment. I
I
watched
dropped
him
him
and
in
230
Afghanistan.
soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America.
Oil.
If they are willing to protect us from there, we should be willing to fight for America here. I
Wonder
will
which
beat
country
Joe
he went
Biden, and he knows
Yeah.
that. I will
He
strengthen our
secretly went to
economy, and we'll bring
Ukraine.
this inflation down. We
Bro,
will
he's
put
in Niger right
transparency in the
now.
classroom. We will secure our borders. We will have the backs of our law enforcement, and we will make sure we have a strong national security. And once again, we will make sure we have an America that is strong and proud. We have a country to save. Join us. Go to NikkiHaley.com and let's get it done.
This is the website section of the debate.
Thank you, Brad and Martha, for this evening. It's an honor to be here. Joe Biden has weakened
weird filler.
America at home and abroad.
Mm-hmm.
The disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, their war on energy, runaway spending that launched the worst inflation in 40 years, a crisis at our southern border, an assault on our values and liberties, and the American people have had enough. But I know we can bring it back. But different times call for different leadership. The
Slightly.
Republican Party
Slightly
owes the
different
American people the
leadership.
choice.
Slightly.
Proven leadership at the
Different
national
air.
level that knows how to
Different,
move a
but
conservative
proven.
agenda forward. We proved in the Trump-Pence years you can turn this country around faster than you can imagine. And I
Some
have
more
faith
the
we
same.
will again. Because I have faith in the American people.
But the same.
The good, decent, hardworking, faith-filled, idealistic people of this country. And I have faith that God is not done with America yet. And if we will renew our faith in one another and renew our faith in Him who has ever guided this nation
I'm
gonna
since we
bring
arrived
God-
on these
if God is
wilderness
done
shores,
with anywhere
I know
on
the
earth,
best
he's
days
done
for the
with
greatest
America.
nation on earth are yet to come.
Thank you. Mr. Ramaswamy.
I was born in 1985, and I grew up into a generation where we were taught to celebrate our diversity and our differences so much that we forgot all of the ways we are really just the same as Americans, bound by a common set of ideals that set this nation into motion in 1776. And this is our moment to revive those common ideals. God is real. There are two genders. Fossil fuels are a
God
requirement.
is real, and
for
in this
prosperity.
house we believe.
Reverse racism is racism. An open border is not a border.
Wow.
Parents determine the education of their children. The nuclear family is the greatest form of governance known to man. Capitalism lifts us up from
This is
poverty.
in this house
there
we
are
believe.
3 branches
Yes.
of government, not 4. And the U.S. Constitution, it is the strongest guarantor
yard signs are
of
gonna be so
freedom in
annoying.
human history. That is what won us the American Revolution. That is what will win us the revolution of 2024. Thanks for letting me introduce myself.
The revolution of 2024.
Did he even get his website in there?
No.
He didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
he looks
boy.
like he's taking a shit right
Sir,
now.
Yeah, he does.
Do you know you're on camera?
This is our
sir?
time for choosing. We will send Joe Biden back to his basement and we will reverse the decline
You
of
already
this
said
country.
that line.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
blue collar kid. I work minimum wage jobs to be able to make
This
ends
guy's
meet.
cooked.
I
Harper.
understand the
Shut
importance
up.
of the American dream, and I know how that's slipped away from so many millions of Americans. Will restore it. I'm a veteran who served in Iraq. I know what it means to put service above self. I'm also a dad and a husband to 6'5" and 3-year-old. I understand the
Of a
importance of
6'5",
protecting
3-year-old?
parents' rights and the well-being of our children. In Florida, we showed it could be done. I made promises and I delivered on all of those promises. 2024 is make or break. We're not getting a mulligan. No excuses.
You are
I
not-
will
you're
get
not
the
getting a
job done.
mulligan.
And as your president, I will not let you down. God bless you all.
He's the only one who talks straight into the camera.
Thank
Yeah,
you
it's
to
true.
all the candidates on the stage tonight, and thank you to Milwaukee.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you
Wow.
on the campaign trail from debates to primaries to the general election and the conventions before that.
And
Thanks for
after
joining
the
us.
first
Sean
couple,
Hannity
we won't
from
be
the
seeing
Spin
you
Room
again.
starts right now.
Take it away, Sean.
Take it away, Sean.
All right, so should we do our wrap up? Should we
Wow.
watch like a minute of
You
Sean?
don't watch Hannity?
I kind of do want to watch. Let's watch. Oh, he's not coming through.
Hannity's
Oh.
not
Election season
good.
is
Hannity's
officially
easy.
up and
Wrong.
running, and tonight we're broadcasting live from the Spin Room. We are in
Yes.
beautiful Milwaukee,
Man,
Wisconsin,
he's got
where in just a moment we're going to
I
hear
took my
directly
picture
from the
with him. I got
candidates
my picture
themselves.
taken with
Florida
him at the
Governor
RNC.
DeSantis, he will be joining us. Vivek
always wanted to go
Ramaswamy
to
will
one of
join
those.
us. Tim Scott, Nikki Haley. We'll get reaction from Trump supporters, but without a doubt, every single Republican running. Guess what? They are far more articulate and ethical than your current president. You know, the compromised cognitive mess that is Joe Biden. And tonight, that was more than very obvious and transparent.
He
In
makes
case you
like
missed it,
MSNBC
here's how it all went
sound
down.
really
Take a quick look.
objective.